Chapter 2103. Very quickly, the carriage stopped in front of a manor. Zhao Yuer lifted her skirt and got off the carriage in a huff. The servant at the door saw this and quickly went forward. "Miss?" Scram. Zhao Yuer glared at the servant and quickly walked into the manor. Passing through the corridor, she pushed open a large door. Inside sat a lady wearing a purple patterned robe. Her eyebrows were long and thin like willow leaves. Her nose was high and she didn't have any makeup on her cheeks, but she looked as rosy as an apricot. Her flowing hair fell over her shoulders, and she was holding a silk cloth in her hand, seemingly embroidering something. This lady was the second young miss of the Zhao family, Zhao Ruer. She wasn't as unruly as Zhao Yuer and had a quiet aura. However, because she was born in the Zhao family and her mother had passed away early, she had a strong personality since young. Of course, this was only in front of outsiders. In front of Zhao Yuer, who was born from the same mother, she was more gentle. Zhao Yuer just saw Zhao Ruer and her tears flowed out. She laid on Zhao Ruer's lap and cried. "Sister." Zhao Ruer saw this and quickly helped Zhao Yuer up. She wiped the tears from her face and asked softly, "Yuer, what's wrong? Did your brother bully you again?" Zhao Yuer's face turned red and she shook her head. "No." "Then what's wrong?" Zhao Ruer helped Zhao Yuer to the bedside and asked softly, "Yuer, what happened?" Zhao Yuer's face turned redder, and she leaned on Zhao Ruer's shoulder without saying a word. This made Zhao Ruer anxious. She quickly patted her shoulder and asked, "Yuer, hurry up and say something. What happened? Did you run out of money again? I still have some here, I'll get some for you." Saying this, she flipped the pillow. Zhao Yuer saw this and pulled Zhao Ruer, stammering, It's just now someone hit me." "Ah." Zhao Ruer's eyes widened in disbelief. She knew this little sister's temper. She was a pure unruly lady. Who dared to provoke her? Even her brother had to avoid her. Who didn't hide on the streets? Someone dared to hit her? How was this possible? She didn't believe this little sister's words. She thought this girl had something to ask of her. After all, something like this had happened before. She touched Zhao Yuer's cheek and said gently, "Yuer, if you don't have money to spend, just tell me. Don't lie to me." "Lie?" Zhao Yuer panicked and her face turned red. "Second sister, I'm not lying to you. Someone really did hit me. When I was on my way back, I met a brat who bumped into my carriage. I asked him to apologize, but not only did he not apologize, he even got off the carriage and hit me. There's such a thing." Zhao Ruer blinked her beautiful eyes and her mouth was wide open. Originally, she didn't believe the girl's words, but seeing how sincere the girl was, her doubts slowly dispelled. However, there was actually someone who dared to hit the Zhao family's third miss? Wasn't that a little too daring? Usually, when this girl walked on the streets, she would not back down. Who would dare to hit her? Was this really unprecedented? However, on second thought, this was also a good thing. He wanted to teach this girl a lesson so that she wouldn't be so lawless outside. Thinking of this, she smiled and said, "Which family's young master hit our Zhao family's third young miss? Where did you hit?" "Sister." Zhao Yuer tugged at the corner of Zhao Ruer's clothes and said coquettishly, "Someone hit your younger sister. Why are you still making fun of me? Think of a way to get revenge for me." Okay, revenge." Zhao Ruer stroked Zhao Yuer's hair and laughed. "Then why don't you tell sister where that brat hit you? What's his name? Otherwise, how can I get revenge?" Hearing this, Zhao Yuer's face instantly turned red. Even her ears turned red. "Sister, don't worry about where he hit me first. That brat is called Zhang Feng. Quickly get revenge for me." "Zhang Feng?" Zhao Ruer frowned. There didn't seem to be such a person in Jiangnan. Even those with the surname Zhang were pitifully few. Where did this brat called Zhang Feng come from? However, this name sounded a little familiar. She turned to look at Zhao Yuer, trying to see something from her expression. However, she only saw a patch of red. This made her feel that something was wrong. Her younger sister usually had the appearance of an unruly young miss and never blushed. Why did her face turn red when she mentioned where she was hit? This didn't seem like the style of an unruly young miss, but more like a young girl in love. However, since her younger sister wasn't willing to say, she didn't decide to continue asking. Right now, it was better to find that brat first. After thinking for a while, she pursed her lips and said, why don't we go tell Big Brother and have him catch that brat? No. Zhao Yu'er didn't even think and directly rejected her. This made Zhao Ru'er even more confused. You were the one who wanted revenge after being hit, and you were the one who didn't want Big Brother to do it. What was going on? Chapter 2104. She held Zhao Yu'er's hand and said helplessly, didn't you say that you wanted revenge? Why aren't you letting Big Brother do it? Don't tell me you're lying. How is that possible? Zhao Yu'er pouted and her gaze was unnatural. That brat did hit me, but this is my business. How can I let Big Brother do it? Why else would I look for you? Zhao Ru'er's lips curled up and revealed an indescribable expression. Then how do you want me to help you? Zhao Yu'er rolled her eyes and stood up slowly. She stretched out her fair fingers and said, Big sister, get some men to capture that brat and let me beat him up. You can look for your big brother for this kind of thing. Zhao Ru'er said faintly, a little impatient. No. Zhao Yu'er shook her head. If Big Brother does it, he will definitely beat that brat to death. How am I going to take revenge then? Zhao Ru'er stared at Zhao Yu'er for a while and smiled playfully. Little sister, don't tell me you can't bear to hit that brat? Otherwise, why don't you let your big brother do it? How is that possible? Zhao Yu'er said instinctively. Just as she said that, she felt that something was wrong. Her face turned red as if it was going to bleed. I mainly want to take revenge for myself. As she said that, she quickly pulled Zhao Ru'er up and said coquettishly, Second sister, hurry up and come with me to get that brat back. Okay. Zhao Ru'er looked at Zhao Yu'er dotingly and walked out of the door together. Not long after, the two women gathered a few servants. Zhao Yu'er placed her hands on her hips and scanned the crowd. Finally, her eyes fell on Xiao Zhao. Xiao Zhao, take all the servants and find the place where that brat lives. Then capture that brat for me. Xiao Zhao chuckled. Yes, Mississippi. Just wait. If that brat dares to run, I will break his legs. Zhao Yu'er's face changed and she stepped forward to give him a kick. Break whose legs? I want you to bring him back, not break his legs. After being kicked for no reason, Xiao Zhao was dumbfounded. He could only nod secretly. Yes, Mississippi. Zhao Ru'er saw all of this and only felt that this little sister of hers was becoming more and more strange. She wanted to teach that brat called Zhang Feng a lesson, yet she did not allow him to hit him. What was the meaning of this? She stepped forward and asked softly, what are you thinking? Didn't you say you were going to beat that brat up? Zhao Yu'er's eyes were evasive as she stammered, Second sister, you don't have to worry about it. Let's talk about it after we capture him. As she spoke, she glanced at the crowd and waved her hand impatiently. Scram. All the servants felt as if they had been pardoned. They wished they could grow 2 more legs and run out the door one after another. Zhao Ru'er smiled and pulled Zhao Yu'er towards the boudoir. Little sister, you can rest assured now, right? I'll bring that kid back to you later. Just as she finished speaking, a displeased voice came from the door. Ru'er. The two girls turned their heads in unison, and only then did they realize that it was the Gao family's eldest young master, Gao Ming. Zhao Yu'er pouted and said in a displeased tone, What are you doing here? Gao Ming cupped his hands and smiled. Ru'er. Young Master Gao, please be careful with your words. Yu'er and Ru are our sisters' maiden names. Please don't address us that way. Zhao Ru'er's face turned cold as she said in a displeased tone, Why are you here at our Zhao residence? She really did not like this Gao Ming's style of doing things. He would do anything to achieve his goals. He had once killed dozens of commoners for a property. This time, he probably did not come to the Zhao residence with good intentions. A hint of coldness flashed across Gao Ming's eyes, but it disappeared very quickly. He then smiled faintly and said, Ladies, you must be joking. Our Gao family and the Zhao family can be considered old friends. There's nothing wrong with calling you by your maiden names, right? Zhao Yu'er waved her hand and said impatiently, Don't talk nonsense. Why are you here at our Zhao residence? Gao Ming smiled and waved his fan. I'm here at the Gao residence to seek an audience with Uncle Zhao regarding the marriage between the Gao family and the Zhao family. As he said that, he used his fan to point at the gift that the servant behind him was holding. Zhao Ru'er and Zhao Yu'er's delicate bodies trembled as they looked in the direction of the fan. This was because they saw a large betrothal written on the gift. This meant that Gao Ming was here to give the betrothal gift? There were only 2 women in the Zhao family. In other words, this betrothal gift was for one of them. Didn't that mean that one of them had to marry into the Gao family? There were only 2 men in the Gao family. Needless to say, Gao Ming was vicious and did things without leaving any room for negotiation. They could not even consider him. Also, that Gao Jian was completely a hedonistic son of rich parents. They could not marry him. Thinking about this, they felt terrified. Zhao Yu'er crossed her arms and said aggressively, "My father isn't here. Leave." In any case, she would not marry anyone from the Gao family. Now that there was no one around, it was better to chase this guy away. Chapter 2105. Gao Ming seemed to have guessed it and smiled. "It's fine if Uncle Zhao isn't here. I can wait here." As he spoke, he ordered the servants to stand aside as if he wasn't going to leave. Zhao Ru'er panicked and scolded angrily. "Gao Ming, do you have any shame? Our Zhao family doesn't welcome you." Gao Ming smiled as if he didn't care at all. "Ladies, this matter isn't up to you to decide. Since ancient times, marriage has been an ancient rule. If you don't believe me, you can ask Master Zhao." Indeed, these words weren't wrong at all. No matter the time, powerful families like to use marriage to ensure the benefits between the families. This was also one of the important reasons why many families prospered for so long. He also thought so in his heart. This time, he came here to use his second brother's name to marry Zhao Yu'er, because no matter if it failed or succeeded, there was no loss. If the Zhao family rejected, then it meant that the Zhao family might really be related to Zhang Feng. If they agreed, then the Gao family would have one more ally. So no matter what the result was, there was no loss to him. At most, he was just using Gao Ming. But the 2 ladies didn't know this. They just wanted to chase Gao Ming away. "Gao Ming, just give up. Both of us sisters will never marry into the Gao family." Zhao Yu'er hugged Zhao Ru'er's arm and glared at Gao Ming with her beautiful eyes. "Ladies, don't be so absolute." Gao Ming waved his folding fan and revealed a playful smile. "This matter can only be decided by Master Zhao. You too, humph." Just as he finished speaking, footsteps came from not far away. A middle-aged man walked over. "Second lady, third lady. Master invites you to the main hall." As he spoke, the middle-aged man noticed Gao Ming and cupped his hands. "Young Master Gao, why are you here? Housekeeper Zhao is too polite." Gao Ming closed his fan and smiled proudly. "You said that Master Zhao is in the main hall, right? Good, I have something to ask Master Zhao." As he spoke, he waved his hand and signaled for the servants to follow him to the main hall. Zhao Yu'er was a little anxious. She stomped her foot and asked, "Butler, why did you tell this guy about father's whereabouts?" Housekeeper Zhao was a little confused. He only came to inform the 2 young misses and didn't tell Gao Ming anything. He was at a loss, so he could only bow and say, "Third young miss, this lowly one didn't tell young Master Gao about Master's whereabouts." Aya. Zhao Yu'er realized that she was having a hard time explaining things to the housekeeper. She turned to Zhao Ru'er and asked, "Second sister, what do we do now?" Zhao Ru'er's beautiful eyes flickered as she spoke. "Come, let's go to the main hall to take a look." "All right, let's go." Zhao Yu'er pulled Zhao Ru'er's arm and ran towards the main hall. In the hall, Gao Ming was talking and laughing with a middle-aged man. This man was the head of the Zhao family. Zhao Yu'er rushed into the hall and glared at Gao Ming. Then, she strode to Zhao Da and said angrily, "Father, why did you let this guy into the hall?" Zhao Da frowned and said unhappily, This young Master Gao is an important guest. How can you speak to him like that?" As he spoke, he turned to look at Gao Ming and smiled faintly. "Young Master Gao, my daughter is naughty. Please forgive her." Gao Ming waved his folding fan and smiled nonchalantly. "Old Master Zhao, you must be joking. You and I have been playmates since we were young. Why would I be angry?" "Who's your playmate?" "Shameless." Zhao Yu'er glared at Gao Ming, then turned around and pulled Zhao Ru'er to sit in front of Zhao Da. They were here to stop this guy from proposing marriage. They couldn't leave now. Young Master Gao, these two daughters have been spoiled by old man. If there's any conflict between them, I hope you don't mind. Zhao De glared at the two girls, then looked at Gao Ming and said, Young Master Gao, may I know what's the matter? Gao Ming smiled faintly and gestured for the servant to open the gift box. Then he said, I'm here to propose marriage on behalf of my second brother. Hearing this, Zhao Da's eyebrows twitched. This wasn't a good sign. Although he also wanted to marry off his two daughters, he had never thought of marrying them to the Gao family. Moreover, the second son of the Gao family didn't have a good reputation. He was a typical hedonistic son, famous even in Chang'an. If he married off one of his daughters, who knew how much suffering they would have to suffer? However, it didn't seem appropriate to reject him directly. After thinking about it, he asked, I wonder if young Master Gao has taken a liking to my daughter? Zhao Yu'er and Zhao Ru both clutched the corners of their clothes nervously. They were afraid that he was talking about them. This was because they didn't know what their father was thinking. Even if they knew, if the Gao family brought out some huge benefits, who knew if their father would agree? This was something that couldn't be predicted. They both looked at Gao Ming, as if they wanted to get something out of him. However, Gao Ming smiled and said, Uncle Zhao, my second brother likes the third Miss Zhao Yu'er. He hopes to marry her. Chapter 2106. Actually, Gao Jian did not know about this at all. And there was no such thing as liking or not liking. It was all planned by him. First of all, Zhao Yu'er was unruly and willful. If Gao Jian really married her, then he would be able to restrain Gao Jian, and he would not have any worries. Even if he did not marry her, he would be able to find out news about Zhang Feng. This was killing two birds with one stone. However, these words were different in Zhao Yu'er's ears. She felt like her head was about to explode. She wanted to marry Gao Jian? What the hell was this Gao Jian? He was a bastard that everyone in Jiangnan knew. How could she marry a bastard? She stood up abruptly and pointed at Gao Ming angrily. Gao Ming, give up. I won't marry that bastard brother of yours. As she spoke, she stepped forward and half knelt in front of Zhao De. Father, I don't want to marry Gao Jian. You have to help me. Zhao Ru also stepped forward and half knelt in front of Zhao De like Zhao Yu. Father, you can't push sister into the fire pit. Looking at his two daughters, Zhao De felt a little uncomfortable. Of course, he knew that Gao Jian was a bastard. No matter what, he would not let his daughters marry into the Gao family. Moreover, he was a madman who spoiled his daughters. Ever since his first wife died, he had been unconditionally good to his two daughters. How could he let his daughters marry into the Gao family? However, Gao Ming was still sitting here, and these two girls came forward to beg. This put him in a difficult position. He could only help his two beloved daughters up and said with a doting face, Ru'er, your father has his own plans. You can leave first. No, I want to stay here and listen. Zhao Yu'er wiped her tears and pulled Zhao Ru'er with a stubborn face. Sister and I will stay here and listen. As they spoke, they returned to their seats and looked at Zhao De expectantly. Zhao De sighed and looked at Gao Ming. Young Master Gao, as you can see, my Yu'er does not want to marry into the Gao family. Gao Ming frowned, faintly feeling that something was wrong. This Zhao Yu'er wanted to use Zhao De to send him off. He thought for a moment and said, Uncle Zhao, since ancient times, marriage has always been decided by the parents and the matchmaker. Moreover, uncle, you have not seen your nephew's betrothal gift. As he spoke, he took out a few pieces of paper from the gift box and handed them over. Zhao De didn't want to take it at first, but seeing Gao Ming holding it up like that, he couldn't reject it directly. He picked it up and glanced at it. Suddenly, his pupils shrank as if he had seen something unbelievable. It turned out that these pieces of paper were all land deeds, and they were all in the best locations in Jiangnan. They belonged to the kind of places that money couldn't buy. There was also a piece of paper with silver, gold, silk, and so on written on it. Zhao Da's eyes widened. For a moment, he even wanted to agree to this marriage. This was because the betrothal gifts were too generous. If the Zhao family accepted these gifts, they might be able to monopolize the top of the 7 families. But on second thought, she was marrying a hedonistic young master. If you were to marry him, she would definitely have a hard time. But looking at the land deeds in his hand, he was a little hesitant. Gao Ming seemed to have expected this result. He waved his folding fan and had the air of an elegant young master. Uncle, this time, the Gao family is willing to offer 1/3 of our properties, 500,000 strings of silver, and 50,000 bolts of silk as the betrothal gifts. Please consider it carefully. Gao Ming, stop showing off. I won't marry into the Gao family. Zhao Yue glared at Gao Ming, then turned around and hugged Zhao Da's arm. She begged, Father, don't hesitate. I don't want to marry Gao Ming. Pulled back to reality, Zhao Da looked deeply at Zhao Yue. Don't be so arrogant. Let me think about it first. Think about it? Zhao Yuer's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that father really wanted to marry her to Gao Ming? Or was he bewitched by the generous betrothal gifts? She was a little scared. She knelt in front of Zhao Da and cried, Father, I don't want to marry Gao Ming. You know what kind of person Gao Ming is. If I marry him, my life will be ruined. Seeing this, Zhao Ruer hurried forward and begged, Father, don't marry my sister to Gao Ming. I beg you. Zhao Da sighed and slumped on the chair. He didn't know how to respond. Of course, he didn't want you, or to marry into the Gao family. But the betrothal gifts offered by the Gao family were too generous. If the Zhao family accepted them, they could become the head of the 7 families. To him, the head of the Zhao family, this was undoubtedly a huge temptation. As long as the Zhao family became the head of the 7 families, they could control Jiangnan from now on. Even if they couldn't get the support of the Li family of Zhao County, they could still form their own family. At this moment, he really hoped that his daughter would consider the Zhao family and agree to this marriage. But he knew that was impossible. Yue had been arrogant since she was young. How could she marry Gao Ming? He was very distressed and began to think about how to persuade Zhao Yue. Chapter 2107. Gao Ming smiled and snorted. Miss Yue, you don't want to marry my second brother. Are you looking down on my Gao family? Zhao Yue glanced at Gao Ming and said fiercely, So what if I look down on your Gao family? Anyway, I won't marry into your Gao family. You can give up. Gao Ming's expression changed slightly. His fingers clenched the paper fan so tightly that it almost deformed. After a while, his expression became slightly better. He snorted and said, Miss Yue, no matter what your reason is, you must give my Gao family an explanation today. My Gao family will not be trampled on by others. You. Zhao Yue pointed at Gao Ming angrily and choked for a moment. She knew that the Gao family's power was basically on par with the Zhao family. If she offended the Gao family today, she was afraid that she would be targeted in the future. However, her lifelong happiness could not be ruined in the hands of the Gao family. Explanation? After thinking for a moment, she had an idea and raised her eyebrows. Explanation, right? Well, I have someone I like. Do you hear me? Gao Ming's eyes widened in disbelief. He knew that although Zhao Yue was arrogant, she rarely dealt with strange men. Moreover, no man could stand this unruly temper, unless he coveted the Zhao family's status. Could it be Zhang Feng, that brat? Yes, it must be that brat. Didn't this bastard say that he was looking for you in Jiangnan? Now that Zhao Yue confessed without being pressed, there must be something behind it. No, he had to be very careful when dealing with this Zhang Feng in the future. With the Zhao family behind him, it would be difficult to touch him. No, this Zhang Feng said that he wanted to do business in Jiangnan, and even wanted to take over the business of the 7 families. Could it be that the Zhao family was behind all this? In an instant, thousands of thoughts had changed in his mind. Zhao Da did not think so much, but he was stunned, because he really could not understand how you, could have someone she liked. Usually, when she went out on the streets, it was the servants and maids who followed her. How could she have the chance to interact with men? It was impossible for her to have someone she liked. Then there was only one possibility. This damn girl was lying to Gao Ming. She wanted to find an excuse to return the betrothal gift. In that instant, he actually felt a little disappointed. As long as Gao Ming agreed, the betrothal gifts would be gone. It would be extremely difficult for the Zhao family to become the head of the 7 great families. But at the same time, he was glad that his daughter didn't have to marry Gao Jian. Just like that, Complicated emotions lingered in his heart. Zhao Ru'er was different. She was purely happy for Zhao Yu. As long as her younger sister did not marry into the Gao family, she could say anything. She glanced at Gao Ming and said coldly, "Gao Ming, did you hear that? My little sister already has someone she likes. She won't marry into the Gao family." Gao Ming's face had already turned the color of pig liver. He glanced at Zhao Yu and said coldly, "So what if you don't marry into the Gao family? Your Zhao family shouldn't be so arrogant." After saying that, he snorted coldly and turned to walk out of the door. Zhao Yu heaved a long sigh of relief. Only now did she feel relieved. "Sister, thank you so much." With that, she turned to Zhao De and said apologetically, "Father, I'm sorry. I ruined the relationship between our two families." Zhao De frowned. He was just thinking about it. Now that Gao Ming had left, what else could he say? He smiled bitterly. "Forget it. This matter will end here. When will you find someone to send the deed back to the Gao family?" "Thank you, father." Zhao Yu nodded with a bitter face. "If there's nothing else, we'll take our leave first." After saying that, she pulled Zhao Ru'er's arm and walked out of the door. The two returned to the boudoir in silence. Zhao Ru'er held Zhao Yu's hand and asked, "Sister, was what you said just now true? Do you have someone you like?" Zhao Yu was stunned. A figure unconsciously appeared in her mind. She didn't know why that annoying guy would appear. She quickly shook her head. "Sister, I was just lying to Gao Ming. If I didn't say that, why would that guy leave?" Zhao Ru'er nodded. "All right then. Don't go out for the time being. Otherwise, the Gao family will find trouble with you." "Don't let me go out? How is that possible?" Zhao Yu shook her head vigorously. She was someone who couldn't stay idle. If she stayed at home every day, wouldn't she be bored to death? "Sister, I'm doing this for your own good. Otherwise, what if the Gao family takes revenge on you?" Zhao Ru'er held Zhao Yu's hand and persuaded her earnestly. However, Zhao Yu didn't seem to care at all. She waved her hand and said, "Why would I be afraid of the Gao family? Just that bastard Gao Jian. If he dares to find trouble with me, I'll kick him to death. Besides, that brat Zhang Feng hasn't been dealt with yet. You have to wait for me to deal with that brat first." "Why are you still thinking about Zhang Feng?" Zhao Ru'er said helplessly. "What do you mean I'm still thinking about that brat?" Zhao Yu said coquettishly. "I want to settle the score with that brat." "Forget it, I can't explain it to you. I'll go see if that brat has been caught." Chapter 2108. With that, she got up and walked out the door. "Wait, I'll go with you." Zhao Ru'er quickly got up and followed her. She felt that the Gao family wouldn't let this go so easily. It was safer to go together. What if her little sister was in danger after leaving the Zhao family? Zhao Yu laughed and pulled Zhao Ru'er to the front yard. She saw a large group of servants squatting on the ground with their hands covering their faces. They looked like they were in pain. Zhao Yu strode forward and glanced at the servants. She saw that their faces were bruised and swollen with blood dripping from the corners of their mouths. She was instantly enraged and shouted at the top of her lungs, "Who did this? Which bastard dared to hit the servants of the Zhao family?" The leader, Xiao Zhao, quickly got up and said while covering his bruised face, "Miss, it's the brat who bumped into your carriage. You have to avenge us." Zhao Yu clenched her fist and shouted. Her eyes were about to spit fire. "Zhang Feng, it's that brat again. He dared to hit my servants." With that, she glanced at the crowd. "Let's go. Let's go find this brat immediately. I must beat him up today to vent my anger." When Xiao Zhao heard this, the blood in his body seemed to boil. He quickly said, "Miss, that brat seems to be opening a shop. It's on the main street now." Zhao Yu bit her cheek and waved her hand. "Let's go and catch this brat." Seeing this, Zhao Ru'er quickly stopped Zhao Yu and said gently, "Little sister, why don't we wait a few days? You just offended Gao Ming. Be careful of being ambushed." Zhao Yu snorted and said with disdain, "Gao Ming wouldn't dare even if you gave him two guts. Big sister, if you're afraid, you don't have to come." As she spoke, she took small steps and ran out of the door, followed by a group of servants. Zhao Ru'er panicked. What if something happened? She hurriedly followed him out. The group of people crossed the street and came to a shop. Zhao Yue glanced at the shop and looked at Xiao Zhao with a gloomy face. Xiao Zhao, are you sure this brat is inside? Xiao Zhao took a look and nodded seriously. Miss, I'm sure. This brat doesn't have many people, but each of them can fight better than the other. Trash. Zhao Yue cursed inwardly. She waved her hand and said, Come, follow me inside. After saying that, she led a group of people into the shop. As soon as he stepped in, he saw the fellow from before sitting on a chair with a look of enjoyment on his face. She was instantly enraged and wanted to curse out loud, but when she recalled the scene in the carriage just now, she couldn't help but blush. She scolded. Brat, get up and accept your death. Zhang Feng was originally resting with his eyes closed. When he heard the voice, he subconsciously opened his eyes. When he saw that it was the girl from before, his pupils involuntarily shrank as he shouted. Why is it you? Why are you here? This voice quickly attracted the attention of Hao Chujun and the others. They all gathered around and looked at Zhao Yu, and Zhao Ru, as they discussed incessantly. Gao Qin pointed at Zhao Yu and smiled. This girl is the one Feng Zi beat up? It's this girl. Yuqi Baoqing nodded and said with a face full of gossip. At first, this girl wanted to beat up Feng Zi, but in the end, Feng Zi pressed her down on the carriage and beat her up, and the place he hit was even there. Hao Chujun frowned. This girl can't be here to seek revenge, right? Hearing the surrounding voices, Zhao Yuer's pretty face couldn't help but redden. In her heart, she had already cursed Zhang Feng 1,000,000 times. Why did this bastard always tell others about everything? Now so many people actually knew about it? How was she going to survive in Jiangnan in the future? She wanted nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. But since she was already here, she couldn't just leave like this, right? She helplessly tugged at Zhao Ruer's sleeve, preparing to ask her sister for help. After being sisters for so many years, Zhao Ruer naturally understood her sister's intentions. But listening to the discussion, something didn't seem right. It seemed that her sister had crashed into someone's carriage and wanted to beat him up. In the end, she was beaten up, and the place she hit was even that place. Now, she called servants to seek revenge? This seemed to be a bit too much. Looking at the situation, she cupped her hands and said to Zhang Feng, Prince Zhang, I'm your sister. Today's matter was purely a misunderstanding. What misunderstanding? Zhao Yuer hurriedly pulled Zhao Ruer back and turned to look at Zhang Feng. She coldly snorted. Zhang, you beat up my servants just now. How do you want to settle this? So these servants are yours? Zhang Feng glanced at the crowd behind Zhao Yuer and sneered. Just now, these servants of yours wanted to beat me up. I haven't even settled the score with you yet, but you're playing the blame game again. I haven't even settled the score with you for what happened in the carriage just now, and you dare to come again? Zhao Yuer's pretty face reddened, but quickly recovered. She coquettishly said, Zhang, don't mention what happened in the carriage. I haven't settled the score with you yet. You want to settle the score after biting me? Zhang Feng glared at Zhao Yu, as if he was looking at an idiot. Chapter 2109. As soon as he said that, everyone looked at Zhang Feng as if they had seen a whole new world. Even Zhao Ruer widened her eyes and looked at Zhang Feng curiously. Although she knew that her sister had a conflict with Zhang Feng, she did not know that her sister had bitten Zhang Feng. Now she was curious. Did her sister bite Zhang Feng's private part? Sensing everyone's gazes, Zhang Feng felt a little uncomfortable. He rolled up his sleeves and said, Let me show you. This was bitten by that unruly girl. As he said that, he extended his arm towards Zhao Ruer. Look, this is what your good sister did. Zhao Ruer took a closer look and saw a purplish-green scar. The bite mark was about the size of a fingernail. She couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. How much strength did this little sister use? How could it leave such a big scar? Wasn't this too cruel? What revenge was there to talk about? It was good enough that she did not take revenge. She turned to look at Zhao Yu, and pursed her lips. Sister, this? Zhao Yu blushed and looked at the wound on Zhang Feng's arm. She said coquettishly, You reaped what you sowed. Who told you to hit me there? All right. Zhang Feng waved his hand impatiently. I don't want to talk to you so much. Hurry up and leave with your servants before you get beaten up again. Zhao Yuer's face turned red. She said indignantly, "You dare to look down on the servants of the Zhao family?" As she spoke, she turned her head and swept a glance at the servants, berating, "Everyone go together and capture that arrogant brat." Hearing that, everyone rubbed their palms together, as if they were ready to avenge the humiliation they had suffered. However, when they saw that the big guy was also ready, their faces changed and they subconsciously took half a step back. Xiao Zhao, who was the leader, retreated to the center and looked timidly at the opposite side, not daring to make a sound. He was beaten up badly just now. How would he dare to go forward now? That would be courting death. There was no movement for a long time. Zhao Yu turned her head to take a look, and saw that everyone was trembling. Her eyes were about to spit fire. She shouted angrily, "You guys don't even listen to my orders? Is it because you haven't been beaten enough?" Little Zhao looked at Zhao Yu with a bitter expression and stammered, "Miss, it's not that we don't want to listen to you, but these guys are too strong. We're no match for them." Zhao Yu stomped her foot angrily. She really wanted to beat this guy up. But now that she was in someone else's territory, she could only endure it. She turned her head to look at Zhang Feng and coldly snorted, "Stinking brat, you better remember this. This matter is not over. I will come back to settle accounts with you next time." Zhang Feng smiled and said in a strange tone, "If you don't dare to fight, then you don't dare to fight. Who doesn't know how to say tough words? Just now, I don't know how many tough words you said, but I didn't see you being that strong. You." Zhao Yu clenched her fists and glared at Zhang Feng with her beautiful round eyes. For a long time she was speechless. Indeed, her side was now at a disadvantage. How could she catch this brat? But it wasn't appropriate for her to leave just like that. She glared at Zhang Feng fiercely and said, "Stinking brat, if you dare, let's fight again." Zhang Feng chuckled. "What? Do you want to be spanked again?" Zhao Yuer's pretty face turned red. For a moment, she didn't know how to talk back. Seeing this, Zhao Ruer patted Zhao Yuer's shoulder and said, "Don't say anything." After saying that, she looked at Zhang Feng and snorted, "Prince Zhang, you hit my sister last time and she bit you back. Or even now. Just now you hit my Zhao family's servant. We'll settle accounts later." Zhang Feng smiled. She still wanted to settle accounts? Did she feel that she hadn't been beaten enough? However, he felt that this woman was more sensible, unlike that unruly young miss. He softened his tone and said, "Miss, go back and persuade your sister. Since there's nothing else, you can leave." Zhao Ruer glared at Zhang Feng, then turned to Zhao Yuer and said, "Sister, let's go." Zhao Yuer couldn't say anything else. She rolled her eyes at Zhang Feng and led the servants away. Glancing at the departing figures, Zhang Feng turned and waved at the crowd. "Don't just stand there. Pack up and go back. We'll open for business tomorrow." Gao Qin came over with a grin. "Fengzi, why did that girl keep finding trouble with you? Don't tell me she likes you?" "Shoo shoo shoo." Zhang Feng rolled his eyes at Gao Qin and said impatiently, "Why do you have so many things to do in one day? You don't worry about what you should worry about. You only know how to talk about useless things. You brat." Gao Qin rolled his eyes at Zhang Feng and turned to pack up. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the room was almost cleaned up. Zhang Feng glanced around and left with everyone. Back in the mansion, everyone gathered in the main hall. Zhang Feng lit a cigarette and took a deep breath. Then he looked at Yuqi Baolin and said, "Baolin, take some people and watch over the house tonight. This place is not like Chang'an. We've just arrived and we've already offended the Gao and Zhao families. For safety's sake, take some people and keep watch for the night." Chapter 21:10. Yuqi Baolin nodded. "Don't worry, Fengzi. I know what I'm doing. I'll go after some rest." Zhang Feng nodded slightly, then looked at Hao Chujun. "Chujun, have you prepared the xian paper and other things?" Hao Chujun cupped his hands. "Teacher, don't worry. I've already prepared everything. We're just waiting for tomorrow to open." "Good." Zhang Feng nodded and said seriously, "Although there aren't any problems now, everyone should be more vigilant tonight just in case the Gao family and the Zhao family come to cause trouble." Jia Daoren nodded. Don't worry, master. I've already arranged for people to guard the house and the shop. Nothing will happen tonight. I hope so. Zhang Feng realized that he had become more cautious after coming to Jiangnan. However, this wasn't a bad thing. After all, the 7 families were eyeing this place covetously. It was better to be careful. After the conversation ended, Jia Daoren led a group of guards to patrol the night. This was something he had to do every night. Ever since the news was leaked last time, he realized that someone from the Gao family had snuck into the house. Since then, he had taken the initiative to bring his guards to patrol the area at night, trying his best to prevent anyone from entering. You two go over there and take a look. Jia Daoren pointed to the corner and said to the 2 guards. The guards nodded and crept along the corner. After a while, they said, "No one. Go over there." Jia Daoren nodded, then waved his hand and walked to the other side. Just as they left, a black shadow flashed out. After glancing at Jia Daoren's back, it flipped over the courtyard wall. The black shadow was very fast. In just a moment, it had passed through several streets. Finally, it pushed open the back door of the Gao family and hurriedly went in. Passing through the corridor, the black shadow pushed open a door and strode in. Sitting inside was Gao Ming. He was holding a teacup as if he already knew that the black shadow was going to come in. He glanced at it indifferently. How is it? Did you find out anything? The black shadow's head was lowered, and no expression could be seen. After a while it stammered, "Young master, the Zhang family is usually guarded by guards. Even at night, there are guards patrolling. This lowly one." Gao Ming's expression changed slightly, and he said word by word, "Are you trying to say that you didn't get any information?" The black shadow shuddered. He didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. Gao Ming was instantly enraged. He raised his teacup and threw it at the black shadow's feet. "You piece of trash. You can't even do a little thing. Have I been too relaxed with you recently?" The black shadow was so scared that he immediately knelt on the ground and kept kowtowing. "Young master, please spare my life, young master, please spare my life," Gao Ming snorted coldly. Just as it was about to speak, the door was pushed open again. A servant walked in. The servant glanced at the black shadow, then looked at Gao Ming and cupped his hands. "Young master, I have something important to report." Gao Ming exhaled, glanced at the black shadow, and said coldly, "Get lost." The black shadow nodded as if he had been granted amnesty. Then he hurriedly retreated. Only then did Gao Ming look at the servant and say in all seriousness, "Speak. What is it?" "Young master, didn't you ask me to inquire about that Zhang Feng? There's news." The servant cupped his hands and revealed a flattering smile. "What news? Speak quickly." Gao Ming's pupils shrank and he said anxiously. The servant smiled and said with a fawning face, "Young master, I heard that Zhang Feng seemed to have brought people to check out a shop today. He seems to have bought that shop." "Impossible." Gao Ming's face changed, and he said in disbelief, "I've already sent people to greet all the shops around. No one dared to sell him a shop. Where did he get this house?" Indeed, he had already asked the servant to tell all the shops that they couldn't sell to Zhang Feng. Those shops had also guaranteed that they would never sell to Zhang Feng. Now how could Zhang Feng have a shop? Could it be, was the Zhao family making trouble? It was very likely that when he went to the Zhao family to propose marriage today, Zhao Yu said that she already had someone she liked. Combined with the reason why Zhang Feng came to Jiangnan, this was very likely the Zhao family's doing. However, the Zhao family should know that Zhang Feng had made a solemn vow. There was no need to offend the Gao family for one Zhang Feng. This was not wise at all. Could it be that there was more to this than meets the eye? After thinking about it, he quickly asked, "Who sold this house to Zhang Feng?" The servant frowned and said after a while, "I didn't find out, but I did find out that Zhang Feng went to the Yang family." "The Yang family?" Gao Ming clenched his fist and his teeth creaked. No wonder. No wonder Zhang Feng had a house. It turned out that the Yang family was messing around. Was the Yang family tired of living? At this moment he was really angry. But soon he thought of another question. Why did the Yang family help Zhang Feng? As far as he knew, Zhang Feng had no relationship with the Yang family. But why did Zhang Feng get in touch with the Yang family as soon as he came to Jiangnan? Chapter 21:11. Moreover, the Yang family had even given Zhang Feng a house? Did the Yang family not know that Zhang Feng had made a vow and had become the enemy of the Gao family? To help Zhang Feng at this juncture, did the Yang family have something to rely on? Or did the Yang family want to bet on Zhang Feng? Unable to figure out the mystery, he could only ask, "What is the relationship between Zhang Feng and the Yang family?" The servant frowned and paused for a while before saying, "Young master, why didn't we find out? We only know that Zhang Feng and that old man Wang Shi went to the Yang family and came out with a house." Wang Shi. Gao Ming slapped the table and his face turned red. After all this time, it was Wang Shi who helped Zhang Feng get in touch with the Yang family. Wang Shi was nothing, but if Zhang Feng got in touch with the Yang family, it would be difficult to deal with him in the future. In Jiangnan, other than the 6 families, only the Yang family dared to go against the Gao family. Although the Yang family's power was small, they still had the ability to go against the Gao family. It seemed that he needed to find other families to join forces. Otherwise, Zhang Feng would only get bigger and bigger. Thinking about it, he asked, "What does Zhang Feng's shop sell? When will it open?" Hearing this, the servant seemed to be interested. He chuckled and said, "Zhang Feng sells paper. He will open tomorrow." Paper? Gao Ming's eyes widened as if he had heard something unbelievable. Then he laughed. "Ha ha ha, this Zhang Feng actually sells paper. Doesn't he know that Jiangnan's Xian paper is famous? Selling paper now is asking for humiliation." Jiangnan's Xian paper was indeed famous throughout the country. Even the imperial palace used Jiangnan's Xian paper to write memorials. Moreover, the Gao family was also involved in the Xian paper industry. He was very confident that he could beat Zhang Feng's paper into a pulp. The servant chuckled. "Young master, you're right. This Zhang Feng actually dares to come to Jiangnan to sell rice paper. He's simply courting death. Doesn't he know that Jiangnan is the source of all the rice paper in the world?" Gao Ming was very pleased with these words and nodded with satisfaction. "Well said, but since he wants to sell paper, let's go see what he can do tomorrow." The servant cupped his hands and smiled flatteringly. "Yes, young master, then this servant will go and prepare." As he spoke, he pushed open the door and slowly walked out. Gao Ming put its hands behind its back and slowly walked to the window. It revealed a devilish smile and said, "Zhang Feng, starting tomorrow, the battle between us will begin. Are you ready?" Haha. It was night, and the sky was filled with stars. They were like bright sparks, and each star seemed to represent a person. They competed with each other to illuminate the land. The night passed quickly. Zhang Feng woke up early and went to the hall. He saw that Jia Daran was already waiting there. He went forward and asked, "Old Jia, is everyone ready?" Jia Daran nodded. "Baolin and Baoqing have gone to prepare the carriage. Gao Can and Hao Chujun are packing some trivial things." As soon as he finished speaking, Yuqi Baolin strode in. "Fengzi, everything is ready. When do we leave?" Zhang Feng glanced outside and saw that it was about time. He said, "Let's go now. It's better to go early. You guys go and inform Hao Chujun and the others." As he spoke, he quickly walked out of the door. There were already 5 carriages parked at the door. 4 of them were used to carry paper, and 1 was used to carry people. Zhang Feng glanced around and saw that there were no problems. He sat in the carriage. Not long after, Gao Can and the others came out and drove the carriage to the shop. When they arrived at the shop, everyone arranged the paper and began to wait for customers. Today was the first time they were selling paper in Jiangnan, so they needed to build a good reputation. Otherwise, it would be difficult to buy paper in Jiangnan in the future. However, after waiting for a long time, no one came. Looking at the dense crowd of people on the street, Zhang Feng was a little anxious. He turned his head and glanced at everyone. "Think of a way. No one is coming." Hao Chujun's eyes turned and said, "Teacher, why don't we put all the paper at the door? Maybe people will come if they see it." Zhang Feng nodded and said with a face full of praise, "That's a good idea. Let's try it." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone immediately began to move some of the paper to the door. As soon as they moved it out, It immediately attracted the attention of a group of people. Taking this opportunity, Hao Chujun wantonly promoted. Everyone, come and see. This paper is better than Xian paper. Hearing this, everyone's interest seemed to be attracted. They all went forward to check it out. Many people held the paper and studied it. A young man dressed like a scholar touched the paper in his hand. His eyes widened and he exclaimed, "What paper is this? Why is it softer than Xian paper?" When the surrounding people heard this, they all showed an expression of disbelief. They also picked up the paper and studied it. Not long after, there were a lot of exclamations. Chapter 21:12. This is even better than Xian paper. It's actually so soft. Yeah, this is nothing compared to Xian paper. If this kind of paper was produced earlier, I would have started selling it long ago. Why did you only start selling such good paper now? I wasted so much Xian paper in the past. Waves of exclamations entered Zhang Feng's ears, and his lips curled into a satisfied smile. If one wanted to do business in Jiangnan, one must first build a good reputation. There was no doubt about that. Obviously, the reputation of the paper had already begun to spread. He seemed to see the image of the paper industry dominating Jiangnan in the future. However, at this moment, a displeased voice sounded. What kind of paper can be compared to Xian paper? I think you're just exaggerating. Hearing this, the crowd couldn't help but feel a little angry, because most of the people standing there were scholars. In their opinion, the quality of the paper directly affected the writing. If it was a bad paper, the words written on it would scatter and not gather, and there would be no way to write a book. If it was a good paper, it would be smooth but not slippery, gathering but not scattering, and it would be perfect for writing a book. Now, someone actually dared to say that the paper was bad? They all turned around and wanted to refute, but they were dumbfounded when they saw who it was. It was the eldest son of the Gao family, Gao Ming. He was someone they couldn't afford to offend, so they could only shrink their heads and retreat far away. Gao Ming glanced at the crowd and snorted coldly. He waved the folding fan in his hand, then looked at Zhang Feng. I presume this is Prince Zhang? Zhang Feng frowned. He couldn't remember who this person was. There was no trace of this person in his memory. Why did he recognize him now? How could he even call his name? Just as he was wondering, Jia Daoren quietly leaned forward and whispered, Master, this person is the eldest son of the Gao family, Gao Ming. Zhang Feng instantly understood. So this guy was from the Gao family. Then, wasn't Gao Jian his younger brother? No wonder this guy sent someone to follow him and eavesdrop on him last time. Why did he come this time? Did he want to ruin his stall? To avenge Gao Jian? After giving it some thought, he smiled and said, Young Master Gao, you're famous. I wonder why you've come to my shop today? Gao Ming glanced at the paper on the table and smiled faintly. I heard that Prince Zhang is going to sell paper today, so I specially came to take a look. If it's good, I'll also buy 2 caddies to try it out. As he spoke, his hand reached for the paper. Wait. Gao Ken stood up and glared at Gao Ming with disdain. I see that you're up to no good. Go away. Gao Ming retracted his hand and looked at Zhang Feng. He smiled and said, Prince Zhang, is this how you treat your guests? Zhang Feng actually didn't want Gao Ming to come to the shop. He didn't even want this guy to touch paper. Thinking about it, this fellow had sent someone to infiltrate the Zhang mansion with the intention of eavesdropping. From this, it could be seen that this Gao Ming was not a good person. Later on, this guy even told all the shops in the city not to sell to him. This was an even more sinister move. With all these things combined, it could be seen that Gao Ming was a vicious person. People like this should stay away from as far as possible. Otherwise, they might kill you one day. But of all things, he just had to fight with Gao Ming. Now he still had to look at the paper. If he didn't let this guy see it, it would be equivalent to telling everyone that the Zhang family treated them differently. It would be difficult to sell paper in the future. However, if this guy saw it, he might use another sinister move later on. After thinking about it, he smiled and said, Young Master Gao, if you want to see it, then go ahead. As he spoke, he pulled Gao Ken behind him. The latter looked reluctant. However, no one cared about his emotions now. Everyone's eyes were focused on Gao Ming. They saw Gao Ming pick up a piece of paper and touch it. His face instantly fell. However, he quickly regained his calm side. In fact, he had been greatly shocked in his heart. He couldn't believe that there was such good paper in this world. Whether it was the smoothness or whiteness, it was far better than rice paper. It was even better than the best rice paper. How in the world did this happen? What was the recipe? If he had this recipe, the Gao family would definitely be ranked as the #1 family in Chang'an. At this moment, he had the urge to take the recipe for himself. However, he knew that the recipe must be in Zhang Feng's hands. At this moment, he still had to solve the problem of this paper. The scholars behind him had already seen this paper. If he didn't stop it, this paper would become popular in Jiangnan in less than a day. This wasn't a good thing for the Gao family. After thinking about it, he put down the paper and sneered. I thought this was some good paper. It turns out that it's just some mediocre paper. You dare to sell this in Jiangnan? As soon as he said this, everyone's eyes widened. They felt that they had heard wrongly. This was obviously better than rice paper. Why did this Gao Ming have to lie through his teeth? Those with sharp eyes quickly saw the truth. This Gao Ming had a conflict with Zhang Feng. He obviously came here to cause trouble. Otherwise, why would he say this? Chapter 21:13. Zhang Feng's heart was the same as mirrors. This Gao Ming obviously had bad intentions. As long as he said that the paper wasn't good, many scholars would give up on buying the paper out of fear of the Gao family's power, and the paper wouldn't be able to be sold. He was furious and was about to argue with Gao Ming when Yuqi Baoqing couldn't stand the loneliness and jumped out first. Gao Ming, you're King slandering us. Our paper is obviously better than Xian paper, but you're still farting here. What do you mean? Gao Ming snorted and said with disdain, I said that this paper isn't as good as Xian paper. Why? Is there anyone who doesn't agree? As he said that, he glanced at the people behind him. Sensing the cold gaze, everyone lowered their heads. How would they dare to say anything? The most powerful family here was the Gao family. Who would dare to say anything? Even if everyone felt that this paper was better than Xian paper, they didn't dare to refute. Zhang Feng could see that these people were afraid of the Gao family's power. None of them dared to say anything. Since that was the case, he might as well make a big deal out of it. Thinking about that, he sneered. Gao Ming, don't think that you can stop me with this. As he said that, he looked at the crowd and shouted, Today, I, Zhang Feng, am willing to give all the paper for everyone to use. Please take it yourselves. You can have as much as you want. Free. Everyone's eyes widened, suspecting that they had heard wrongly. This paper was free just because he said so? How much was this? They all looked at the paper on the table, their eyes bloodshot. They couldn't wait to take all the paper for themselves. However, they thought of a serious problem. This Gao family's young master kept saying that this paper wasn't as good as Xian paper. They had all touched it with their own hands and knew the quality of the paper. The key was that Gao Ming's words had completely stopped them. If they went up to take the paper, wouldn't they be going against the Gao family? Would they lose their lives for a few pieces of paper? That was obviously unwise. However, this paper was better than Xian paper. For scholars like them, this was undoubtedly a huge temptation. Moreover, these papers didn't even cost money. It was simply a free lunch. Right now they were like starving people. There was delicious food in front of them, but they couldn't eat it. They were as anxious as monkeys scratching an itch. And all of this was caused by Gao Ming. He personally said that the paper was not good, which made everyone stop. In fact, he was also very uneasy in his heart, because he did not expect this Zhang Feng to be so ruthless. He was actually willing to give up this good opportunity to make a fortune for a good reputation. This was because he knew just how crazy the scholars of Jiangnan were. In order to obtain good brushes and ink, they didn't hesitate to sell their family property. As long as Zhang Feng raised the price now, there would certainly be a large group of scholars buying. However, the premise was that he wasn't here. But now it was a different story. Even if Zhang Feng did it for free, not many people would dare to take it. He was quite confident about this. He sneered, Prince Zhang, look, your paper is really of poor quality. Even if it's free, no one will want it. I believe that in less than a day, your reputation will spread throughout Jiangnan. Zhang Feng was furious. He was really angry. Previously, he had sent someone to infiltrate the Zhang residence. At that time he was still busy, so he didn't plan to pursue the matter. He didn't expect this guy to come now. This F***king directly threatened his own interests. This was absolutely intolerable. He waved his hand and said coldly, Gao Ken Bao Lin Bao Qing do it. Beat this guy to a pulp for Lao Tzu. Gao Ken and the others had long disliked this Gao Ming. If it wasn't for Feng Zi talking to this guy, they would have already gone up. Now that they heard this, it was as if the primitive force in their bodies had been released. They all rubbed their palms together. Little brat Gao, prepare to die. Gao Ken clenched his fists, and his joints cracked. Gao Ming was not a fool. Before coming out, he naturally expected this scene, so he brought many guards with him. Now that they were going to shed all pretense of cordiality, he was not afraid at all. He waved his hand. Come, get ready to do it. Swish, swish, swish. Dozens of guards rushed out from the crowd. Each of them had bulging muscles and looked like they had been trained. Gao Ming sneered and pointed at Zhang Feng with his fan. All of you go. Smash the shop first. Don't hurt him. Now that he knew that Zhang Feng was related to the Yang family and the Zhao family, he still had to be cautious. If they smashed the shop, they would at most have to pay some money. If they killed him, the Yang family and the Zhao family would come looking for them. It would be a little difficult to deal with. Hearing Gao Ming's words, the guards nodded. They rolled up their sleeves and rushed up. Gao Ken and the others did not hesitate. They rushed up with their clubs. Although the other party had many people, they were not afraid at all. Yuqi Baoqing Baolin, which one of them didn't fight against 10 people at once? Why would they be afraid of these people? Everyone was entangled in a fight, and shouts could be heard. More and more people gathered around. Many people even stopped doing business and gathered around to watch the fight. Some people even clapped and cheered. Chapter 21:14. At that moment, a young man in the crowd glanced at Gao Ming deeply before turning to leave. His speed was very fast. In a short while, he had passed through several streets and finally stopped in front of a mansion. He pushed open the door and strode in. When he arrived at the garden, there were 2 women sitting there. They were Zhao Yu'er and Zhao Ru. The young man stopped and cupped his hands. Second miss, third miss, something happened to Zhang Feng. What? Zhao Yu'er turned her head abruptly and asked anxiously. What happened to that brat? The young man cupped his hands and said respectfully. Gao Ming went to Zhang Feng's shop and prepared to overthrow Zhang Feng's shop. What? Zhao Yu'er exclaimed and stood up abruptly. Just as she was about to speak, she felt that something was wrong and blushed. That brat deserved it. Who told him to hit me? Gao Ming will teach him a lesson. She waved her hand. You can leave now. As soon as she finished speaking, she felt that she had said something wrong. She wanted to reach out and call that person back, but she found that that person had already walked far away. She sighed and felt empty in her heart. She clenched her fist and walked on the ground. Zhao Ruer covered her mouth and laughed. She stood up and patted Zhao Yu'er on the shoulder. Little sister, are you worried about that brat Zhang Feng? Who's worried about him? Zhao Yu'er was like an angry hen. Her face was red and she said angrily, that brat hit me. Why would I be worried about him? I want Gao Ming to kill him. Just mentioning him makes me angry. That bastard. She stomped on the ground and muttered to herself indignantly, stomp that bastard to death. Zhao Ruer seemed to have noticed something. Her little sister was worried about Zhang Feng, and even had a good impression of Zhang Feng. Of course, this was just her guess or intuition. Otherwise, why would this girl be so angry when she heard Zhang Feng's name? This was not something a girl should behave like. What's more, this girl had an anxious look on her face. Although she didn't say it, her actions showed that she was worried about Zhang Feng. She smiled. Little sister, since you're so concerned about Zhang Feng, do you want to save him? Sis, Zhao Yu'er furrowed her brows and stomped her feet. I already said that I'm not concerned about that bastard. He even hit me last time. Have you forgotten? Zhao Ruer patted Zhao Yu'er's jade-like shoulder and said with a playful smile. But he hit you there. As she spoke, she glanced at Zhao Yu'er's lower body. Zhao Yuer blushed and said coquettishly, "Sister, why are you still making fun of me? I don't want to play with you anymore." With that, she stomped her feet and pretended to leave. This stunned Zhao Ru'er. In the past, this unruly younger sister of hers had never acted coquettishly. Now when Zhang Feng's name was mentioned, this little sister actually acted coquettishly. This was the first time something like this had happened. Now, she was more and more certain that this younger sister of hers had feelings for Zhang Feng. However, now that Zhang Feng seemed to be in danger, this younger sister could not bring herself to look for Zhang Feng. What should she do? Suddenly, she had an idea. She scoffed and said, "Little sister, that Zhang Feng hit you last time. How about we use this opportunity to avenge you?" Zhao Yuer turned her head and asked with concern, "Sister, what do you want to do?" "Avenge you, of course." Zhao Ru'er smiled and pointed at her. "Didn't Gao Ming go to find trouble with Zhang Feng? I'll send a servant to help Gao Ming, and use this opportunity to avenge you." With that, she deliberately walked toward the door, glancing at Zhao Yuer from time to time. Zhao Yuer's heart skipped a beat. If this sister went to avenge him, then Zhang Feng might be beaten to death, right? If he dies, then why am I worried about this bastard? If he dies, shouldn't I be happy? But I can't let this guy die yet. I want to avenge him. I want to avenge him with my own hands. Yes, that's it. I can't let Gao Ming avenge me. She repeatedly convinced herself in her heart. She shook her head and finally calmed down. She stepped forward and stopped Zhao Ru'er. "Sister, you can't go." Zhao Ru'er smiled proudly as if she had already guessed all this. "Little sister, I'm here to avenge you. Why don't you let me go? Do you really care about him? Who cares about that bastard?" Zhao Yuer was still stubborn. "I just don't want that guy to die in Gao Ming's hands. I want to avenge him with my own hands." "Oh, so that's why." Zhao Ru'er pretended to be enlightened. In fact, she was very happy. This silly sister of hers was about to be exposed. She coughed and smiled. "Then sister, what do you think we should do? Sister will definitely help you. Whether it's to catch Zhang Feng or to beat him up, it's fine." Zhao Yuer pursed her lips and raised her head to look at Zhao Ru'er. She saw the latter's evil smile. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be that sister saw through it? No matter, finding that bastard was more important. What if he was beaten to death by Gao Ming? Chapter 21:15. She kept convincing herself. After a while, she pulled Zhao Ru'er's hand and said faintly, "Sister, let's go find Zhang Feng and save that one while we're at it." "Save?" Zhao Ru'er purposely exclaimed and looked at Zhao Yuer in disbelief. "Sister, you said you don't care about Zhang Feng, but now you want to save him." No. Zhao Yuer waved her hand and quickly quibbled. "I don't care about Zhang Feng, I just don't want him to die in Gao Ming's hands. If he dies, who will I seek revenge from in the future?" "So that's the case." Zhao Ru'er revealed a confused expression and smiled. "Then let's go." Zhao Yuer was already anxious and quickly pulled Zhao Ru'er to the front yard. "Hurry, it'll be too late if we're late." Zhao Ru'er sighed. She really didn't know what to do with her sister. She clearly cared about Zhang Feng, but she refused to say anything and even showed a face full of hatred. She was simply reaping what she sowed. Passing through the corridor, the two women came to the front yard. Zhao Yuer glanced at the servants and said sternly, "Everyone follow me." The servants were guarding the door, so who dared to go out? But when they saw that it was two young ladies, they didn't dare to say anything and could only follow behind. The group of people exited the mansion in a grandiose manner, and soon arrived at the store. At this moment, Zhang Feng and Gao Ming's people were in a stalemate. The two groups were locked in a fierce battle, and it was hard to determine the winner. Originally, Gao Qin Yuqi Baoqing and Yuqi Baolin were all good fighters, and they could easily defeat a few people. However, the others were not good at fighting. For example, Hao Chujun Zhang Feng, and the rest would be beaten up if they went up. So not only did Gao Ken and the rest have to deal with Gao Ming's people, they also had to protect Zhang Feng and the rest. Seeing this, Zhao Yuer began to search for Zhang Feng in the crowd. But after searching for a long time, she still couldn't find him. She was a little anxious and couldn't help but shout, "Everyone stop." A sharp voice echoed throughout the street. Everyone stopped and looked at Zhao Yu'er. Gao Ming's eyes widened, and he cursed in his heart. Why is this little girl here? Could he be here to save Zhang Feng? If that was the case, then today's trip would have been in vain. He hurriedly stepped forward and said with some displeasure, Yu'er, why are you here? It's none of your business. Zhao Yu'er rolled her eyes at Gao Ming and walked towards the shop. As she walked, she shouted, Where's Zhang Feng? Where is this bastard? Gao Can and the others retreated and hurriedly made way for this unruly young lady. Ever since they found out that this girl was the third daughter of the Gao family, they couldn't wait to stay as far away from her as possible. She was willful and unruly, and she came to find trouble with Fengzi every day. It was best to stay away from this kind of woman, because you don't dare to provoke them, and you don't dare to fight them, so you have to stay far away. After searching for a while, she still couldn't find Zhang Feng. Zhao Yu'er frowned and glared at Gao Ming. Gao Ming, what did you do to Zhang Feng? Hearing this, Gao Ming was even more certain. Zhao Yu'er had something to do with Zhang Feng. And it wasn't a small matter. Maybe it was an engagement. Otherwise, why would Zhang Feng come all the way to find Zhao Yu'er? Zhao Yu'er didn't hesitate to offend the Gao family to find Zhang Feng. All these signs indicated that there was something between the two of them. He narrowed his eyes and tried his best to look relaxed. How would I know where that brat Zhang Feng went? It was so chaotic just now. Maybe he took the opportunity to escape? Anyway, that brat is a coward. Nonsense, Zhang Feng isn't that kind of person. Zhao Yu'er subconsciously retorted. In fact, she didn't know why she said that. Anyway, she just blurted it out. As soon as she said it, she felt that something was wrong and quickly changed her words. Even if that Zhang Feng escaped, he's still better than you. Gao Ming snorted and thought, she's exposed, right? There's definitely something going on. Otherwise, why would she be so protective of Zhang Feng? He said with dissatisfaction, that brat is a coward. He doesn't even dare to come out when his sweetheart comes. Who the hell are you calling a coward? A series of curses came out from the shop. Then Zhang Feng stood out with an angry face. He stared at Gao Ming and said, Gao Ming, what the hell are you saying? Are you looking to die? Seeing Zhang Feng come out, Zhao Yu'er subconsciously stepped forward and asked, Zhang Feng, are you okay? Stay away from me. Zhang Feng stepped back. He didn't come out just now because he saw this unruly young lady. Now that this unruly young lady stepped forward, he was very uncomfortable. He quickly said, I'm fine. You just need to stay away from me. Gao Ming, who was at the side, was stunned. Zhao Yu'er had brought people to save Zhao Feng. And this Zhang Feng had a look of unwillingness? It looked like Zhao Yu'er was throwing herself at Zhang Feng. What was wrong with this world? Zhao Yu'er was throwing herself at a brat like Zhang Feng? This Zhao Yu'er was the third young lady of the Zhao family. How did she become like this? He felt like his worldview was about to collapse. But soon, a wave of hatred surged in his heart. Chapter 21:16. Zhao Yu'er would rather marry Zhang Feng than marry into the Gao family. This was obviously an insult to the Gao family. Although he didn't like Gao Jian, he still had to protect the Gao family's face. Otherwise, how could the Gao family establish itself in Jiangnan in the future? Wouldn't they be criticized behind their backs every day? Thinking about this, he stepped forward and snorted. Zhao Yu'er, what's going on between you and Zhang Feng? Zhao Yu'er was annoyed. This Zhang Feng dared to ignore her? And his face was cold? She was worried about where to vent her anger, and now Gao Ming came. She raised her eyebrows and said unhappily, What does my business have to do with you? Who do you think you are? You, Gao Ming's eyes were about to spit fire, and his face was fierce. You just rejected the Gao family's marriage, and now you're fooling around with Zhang Feng. Do you think the Gao family is easy to bully? Who's fooling around with him or her? These words were said by Zhang Feng and Zhao Yu'er almost at the same time, because both of them were very unhappy with these words. Especially Zhang Feng. He was now in a period of war with Zhao Yu'er. When did he fool around? Zhao Yu'er was also angry. She just wanted to save Zhang Feng. And now Gao Ming said she was fooling around? She was very unhappy and glared at Gao Ming. Gao Ming, watch your mouth. I have nothing to do with Zhang Feng. Nothing to do with him? Gao Ming couldn't help but sneer. If she had nothing to do with him, would she reject the Gao family's marriage for Zhang Feng? If she had nothing to do with him, would she bring people to save this guy? If she had nothing to do with him, would she help this guy? In his heart, he didn't believe Zhao Yuer's words at all. He thought that this girl was just trying to cover it up. He glared and snorted. Zhao Yuer, you're here today for Zhang Feng, right? Do you want to destroy the relationship between the Gao and Zhao families because of him? Can you bear this responsibility? Zhang Feng suspected that he had misheard. Zhao Yuer came here for him? He just wanted to King take revenge. How did it involve the relationship between the Gao and Zhao families? This was simply making trouble for no reason. He turned to look at Zhao Yuer, trying to get an answer. Zhao Yuer's face was so red that it looked like it could bleed at any moment. She originally only wanted to save Zhang Feng, and then take revenge. That was all. Who would have thought that Gao Ming would say something like that? Her beautiful eyes widened as she pointed at Gao Ming and scolded. Gao Ming, don't slander me here. I'm here just. At this point, she didn't know what to say. If he said that he was looking for Zhang Feng, wouldn't that be exactly what Gao Ming wanted? However, if they were not looking for Zhang Feng, then what would Gao Ming do to Zhang Feng? For a moment, she was stunned. Gao Ming seemed to have noticed something and sneered. What? Can't say anything? What are you doing here? If it's not for Zhang Feng, what else could it be? You. Zhao Yuer choked and didn't know what to say. Her pretty face turned red. Seeing this, Zhao Yuer quickly stepped forward and snorted. Gao Ming, why do you care what my sister is doing here? What does it have to do with you? It has nothing to do with me. Gao Ming smiled. He glanced at Zhang Feng and said, since you guys are here, it has nothing to do with me. Then please step aside. As he said that, he waved behind him. Everyone break Zhang Feng's legs. Originally, he didn't want to hurt Zhang Feng for the time being, but these two women from the Zhao family were a bit too much. He couldn't bear it anymore. Zhao Yuer saw that the atmosphere was tense and that the Gao family's servants were ready to attack. She quickly stepped in front of Zhang Feng and scolded. Gao Ming, what are you doing? Gao Ming sneered. Zhao Yuer, you said you didn't come for Zhang Feng. What do you mean by standing in front of him? Are you trying to protect him? No. Zhao Yuer said subconsciously. Zhao Yuer blurted out. She glanced at Zhang Feng out of the corner of her eye and hurriedly tried to cover it up. I'm here because I can't stand your tyrannical behavior. The Gao family is used to being tyrannical, and now you're interfering with people selling paper. Do you really think the Gao family is the landlord of Jiangnan? Gao Ming narrowed his eyes and clenched his fists. Zhao Yuer, you mean you have to interfere in today's matter? That's right. Zhao Yuer raised her eyebrows and snorted. Since I'm here today, I can't let you be so domineering. As she said that, she glanced at Zhang Feng from the corner of her eyes. Naturally, Zhang Feng sensed it and shivered in fright. He knew that this girl was the kind of girl who wanted to take revenge on him as soon as possible. How could she be so kind? Protecting him? Could it be that she was playing hard to get? Or did this girl have some bad ideas in her mind? He patted Zhao Yuer's shoulder and asked curiously, Zhao Yuer, what's wrong with you today? Shut up. Zhao Yuer turned her head and rolled her eyes at Zhang Feng, then looked at Gao Ming and snorted. Gao Ming, bring it on. I'll take it, but you have to think about whether you have a chance of winning. Chapter 21:17. As she spoke, she waved to the servants she brought. Everyone, come here. If Gao Ming's people make a move, you guys make a move immediately. Everyone obeyed and stood in front of Zhao Yuer, glaring at the Gao family's servants, looking like they would start a fight at any moment. Looking at everything in front of him, Gao Ming deeply knew that he was now at a disadvantage. Just now, the servants were already having a hard time dealing with Gao Can and the others. Now, with the addition of the Zhao family's servants, there was no need to think. They were no match at all. However, now that the situation had come to this, could it be that he had to leave with his tail between his legs? He was not convinced, and even more unwilling. Because if he let Zhang Feng go today, this guy's paper will definitely cause an uproar in the city. At that time, It would not be easy to clean up. However, his subordinates were no match for the other side at all. What should he do? Zhang Feng seemed to see through Gao Ming's thoughts and smiled. Gao Ming, I think you can't do it today. Hurry up and leave. If you want to take revenge next time, come over. I'll take care of it. You, Gao Ming glared at Zhang Feng, full of fierceness. He clearly heard this guy mocking him, but he just couldn't do anything. There was no way, the other side had too many people. His side was not at all worried. Once a fight broke out, his side would definitely lose. Thinking about it, he snorted. Zhang Feng, Zhao Yu or Zhao Ru or I Gao Ming, will remember today's matter. We'll fight another day. Let's go. After that, he glared at Zhang Feng and waved his hand to call the servants to leave. Zhang Feng let out a long breath and patted Zhao Yu's shoulder. Sigh, they're all gone. Zhao Yu quivered and turned her head to glare at Zhang Feng. Do you want to die? You scared me. Zhang Feng raised his eyebrows and said with some dissatisfaction. Sigh, you obviously scared me. Why are you saying that I scared you? I'm too lazy to talk to you. Zhao Yu crossed her arms and put on the look of a young miss. Just now, I don't know who was so scared that they didn't dare to come out. If I didn't come over, they would probably have peed their pants. Zhang Feng's face turned red, and he pointed at Zhao Yu, not knowing what to say. Just now he was not afraid of Gao Ming. A mere Gao Ming was not enough to scare him. However, this little girl was too infuriating. He just wanted to stay away from her. But now he was said to be afraid of Brilliant? How the F***ck could he accept this? He glared at her and said with dissatisfaction. Zhao Yu, don't talk nonsense. I wasn't afraid of Gao Ming just now. Isn't that bastard just a playboy? What's there to be afraid of? Yo, I wonder who was hiding just now? Zhao Yu raised her eyebrows and sneered. You said you're not hiding from Gao Ming. Then tell me, who are you hiding from? Tell me. Zhang Feng took half a step back. He didn't know why, but every time he saw this girl, there was an indescribable feeling in his heart. He was usually very talkative, but in front of this girl, it was as if he was stuck and couldn't say anything. However, seeing this girl's proud look, he was a little angry in his heart. He braced himself and said, It's none of your business. Anyway, it has nothing to do with you. Zhao Yu laughed and said, How can it have nothing to do with me? This young lady brought people to save you. You heartless and unscrupulous person. Don't you know how to say something nice? Zhang Feng was grateful to Zhao Yu. After all, this girl drove away Gao Ming, but her words were too much. What did she mean by he was heartless? He retorted with dissatisfaction. Zhao Yu, don't be sarcastic. Did I ask you to help me? Obviously, you came here by yourself, and now you're scolding me? I asked you to be a good person. What? Now you want to be a bad person? You're a bastard. Zhao Yu's beautiful eyes widened and she said indignantly, If I didn't come to save you, you wouldn't even know how you died. Zhang Feng hugged his hands and said unconvinced, Humph, even if you didn't come, I have a way to deal with Gao Ming. Besides, am I afraid of him? Humph, you only know how to talk tough. Zhao Yu followed Zhang Feng and hugged her hands. When Zhao Yu saw that the two of them were getting more and more aggressive, she quickly came out to smooth things over. Okay, stop talking. Zhang Feng, if we didn't come, I'm afraid you wouldn't have had a good time, right? What she said was true. Originally, the two sides were a bit evenly matched. If the Zhao sisters didn't come, who knew how long the stalemate would last? However, Zhang Feng was not afraid of Gao Ming and the others, because his side was basically a master, and Gao Ming's side had more people. Zhang Feng was also aware of this, so he smiled awkwardly and said, All right, I know. Thank you for your help this time. That's more like it. Zhao Yu laughed and turned to look at Zhang Feng. But remember, I didn't come here to save you. I just want to drive Gao Ming away. Zhang Feng nodded and quickly waved his hand. Okay, hurry up and go. Chapter 21:18. Zhao Yu raised her eyebrows and said unhappily, I helped you chase Gao Ming away out of kindness, and now you want to chase me away? Zhang Feng was speechless. Gao Ming had already left, so why was she still here? He curled his lips and said helplessly, Then what are you going to do? Let me treat you to a meal? That won't be necessary. Zhao Yun waved her hand. Suddenly, she saw the paper on the table, and her curiosity was piqued. She grabbed one and studied it. Soon, her eyes widened as if she had seen something unbelievable. Why was this paper so soft? It seemed even softer than rice paper? And it was so thin? It was even better than rice paper. Why did Zhang Feng have this kind of paper? If this were to spread in Jiangnan, wouldn't it attract the scholars to go crazy and fight over it? She couldn't help but ask, Zhang Feng, where did you get this paper? None of your business. Zhang Feng rolled his eyes at Zhao Yue and said angrily, This is my paper, what does it have to do with you? You. Zhao Yue glared at him. Just as she was about to scold him, Zhao Ruer stepped forward and said, You forget it. Let me see what kind of paper this is. As she spoke, she took the paper from Zhao Yuer's hand and studied it. She touched it lightly and was stunned. This paper was too good, wasn't it? Why did it feel even better than the best rice paper? And this softness didn't seem to be found in rice paper. If it was sold in Jiangnan, it would definitely dominate the paper market, right? I wonder what the actual effect of this paper is? As she thought, she looked at Zhang Feng and said, Zhang Feng, do you have a pen here? I want to see the effect of your paper. Zhang Feng smiled faintly. He had a good impression of Zhao Ruer, so he said, Of course I do, I'll get someone to get it for you. As he spoke, he turned and said something to Hao Chujun. The latter turned and walked into the inner hall, and soon came back with a few pens. Zhang Feng smiled. Oh, the pen is here. Zhao Ruer nodded at Zhang Feng, and prepared to experiment on the paper. When the scholars who had not left behind saw this, they all rushed forward. When the two parties were fighting just now, they were afraid and hid at the side. But they were still thinking about this piece of paper in their hearts, which was why they did not leave. Now that this second young mistress of the Zhao family wanted to write on it, how could they let go of such an opportunity? Since he could see the calligraphy of the second miss of the Zhao family, and observe the quality of the paper, why not? Zhao Ruer swept her gaze across the crowd. Without saying a word, she dipped her brush into the ink and began to draw on it. Soon, a landscape painting appeared on the paper. Zhao Ruer's eyes widened as if she had discovered something inconceivable. It was not because of this painting, but because she had drawn this painting thousands of times and was very familiar with it. Instead, it was because the ink on it did not scatter at all. One had to know that even if it was the best Xian paper, the ink would still be a little scattered on it. Who would have thought that the paper would not fall apart at all? What paper is this? Could it really be better than Xian paper? At this moment, she even started to have some doubts. She suspected that there was something wrong with her brush. Otherwise, how could it become like this? But after she checked, she did not discover any problems. Did this mean that the problem was with this paper? Was this paper too powerful? She was slightly puzzled as she lifted her head to look at Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng, this paper of yours. Zhang Feng smiled as if he had already guessed it. You want to ask why this paper of mine is able to gather and not scatter when the ink is spilled on it? Zhao Ruer nodded her head and said with a serious face, That's right. I have used the best Xian paper, but it did not achieve such an effect. Before Zhang Feng could say anything, the people behind him could not hold it in any longer. They all went forward, and when they saw this paper, they all exclaimed in shock. How could this be? Why is the ink not scattered at all? Could this paper really be so powerful? That's not right. Even the best Xian paper would not be able to achieve such an effect. Everyone looked at Zhang Feng in disbelief. In their eyes, there was disbelief, astonishment, and a few doubts because all of this seemed to be a bit of a coincidence. Thinking about it, Zhang Feng had just opened the shop today, and Gao Ming had brought people over. Then the Zhao sisters came over and began to experiment on this paper. It sounded like there was nothing wrong with it. But after thinking about it carefully, they felt that there was something wrong. Why would the Zhao sisters help Zhang Feng? Zhang Feng was just a fledgling in Jiangnan. No one had even heard of him. The Zhao sisters helped Zhang Feng so much that they even did not hesitate to fall out with the Zhao family. Why did they do this? And now they were experimenting on paper? Many people could not help but have doubts. Prince Zhang, What's going on with this paper of yours? Why would Miss Zhao protect you so much? Chapter 2119. A man dressed in scholar's attire looked at Zhang Feng and started to question him. But very quickly, quite a number of scholars who liked this paper jumped out to defend this paper. They didn't know Zhang Feng and hadn't even seen him before. However, due to their love for the paper, they still started to defend it. What do you mean by this? The paper they sell is so good, even better than Xian paper. This is clearly for the benefit of the scholars in Jiangnan. Why are you still splashing dirty water here? A young scholar said sternly. Zhang Feng saw that the scene was a little chaotic and hurriedly waved his hand to stop it. Everyone, don't make a ruckus. Just now someone questioned my paper. Since this is the case, please come up and test it out. If there is a problem with my paper, then I will apologize to everyone today. If there is no problem, then I will ask this person to apologize in front of everyone. What do you all say? Everyone clapped and cheered at Zhang Feng's suggestion, and asked the person who had questioned to come out. That person was a little helpless. He had only questioned, and was trying to show off his tongue. Who would have thought that he would be asked to go out now? He didn't want to go out, but when he saw everyone's disdainful eyes, he still braced himself and walked out. Prince Zhang, it was me just now. Zhang Feng sneered in his heart and thought to himself. To still dare to come out now, your guts are not small. He picked up a brush and handed it to this person, saying coldly, you can try it out first. If there is a problem, I will apologize to everyone. If there is no problem, then you will apologize to me in front of everyone. This person quivered. Hearing Zhang Feng's words, it seemed that he had nothing to fear. Could this paper really be better than Xian paper? Could there really be no problem at all? He shook his head and braced himself to take the brush and started to write on the paper. Just as he started to write, he was stunned. Could this paper really make the ink gather and not scatter? And it was even better than Xian paper? What was going on? Could all of this be real? He was a little suspicious. While he was still in a daze, a reprimanding voice sounded beside him. Hey, are you done writing? The one who spoke was Zhao Yu. When Zhang Feng was questioned, she was very angry. She didn't know why, but as long as Zhang Feng was in trouble, she would become very nervous. It was as if she didn't want to put Zhang Feng in a dangerous situation. If it wasn't for Zhao Ruer stopping her earlier, she would have already come up. Now this guy had already finished writing, but he was still dawdling. She couldn't stand it anymore. Are you done or not? A sharp voice rang out. This person was startled, and the brush in his hand accidentally fell to the ground. Only then did he timidly reply, oh, it's over, it's over. Zhao Yu snorted. Then tell me, what's wrong with this paper? The man was stunned. He turned to look at the paper and didn't know how to answer. Because everyone could see the paper. The result was obvious. It was better than Xian paper. The ink stains gathered and did not scatter. It was obviously a piece of high-quality paper. However, he couldn't say it out loud. Because he had just questioned the paper, he didn't know how to say it now. Zhao Yu saw that this guy didn't say anything and sneered. What? Can't say anything? Didn't you just say that there was a problem with the paper? Now that you've already tested it, you can't say anything. This person's face turned red, and he wanted to find a hole to hide in. The people behind him also understood that this guy was being unreasonable. This paper was obviously very good. Even better than Xian paper, but this guy just had to question it. Now that the results were out, he didn't dare to say a word. They all started to complain. You clearly don't know anything and yet you're still talking here. Are you embarrassed now? Hurry up and get down. You're all embarrassed. Yeah, hurry up and get down. Don't disturb us from selling paper. The curses didn't stop, and this person could only sneak off the stage. When the crowd saw that the troublemaker was gone, they hurriedly asked, Shopkeeper Zhang, how much is this paper? How much is a caddy? I want 10 caddies. Zhang Feng actually wanted to give a slightly lower price, but he had just said that it was free. It seemed a bit unreasonable to ask for money now. Moreover, today was the first day of business. He wanted to build a reputation. What if this dissatisfaction ruined his reputation? After thinking about it, he decided to make it free, because this way, not only could he shut everyone's mouth, but he could also let them have a good impression of him. Maybe he could use this opportunity to gain a foothold in Chang'an paper. After making up his mind, he coughed lightly and said loudly, "Everyone, don't be anxious. Listen to me. I've decided that all the paper will be free today." "Free?" Zhao Yuer exclaimed. "There was so much paper here and all of it was free? How much of a loss would that be?" She didn't even think and hurriedly said, "Zhang Feng, if it's free, how much of a loss would that be?" Chapter 21:20. Zhang Feng couldn't help but roll his eyes at Zhao Yuer. "You're not my wife. What does it have to do with you whether I'm free or not?" Hearing this, Zhao Yuer's pretty face turned red. She couldn't help but secretly curse. "Bastard. What nonsense are you talking about?" The quarrel between the two of them caused Zhao Ru'er, who was watching from the side, to chuckle. She had rarely seen her younger sister blush. Moreover, she blushed frequently. Ever since she met Zhang Feng, she would blush whenever they quarreled. There was definitely something going on here. This was her intuition as a woman. Although her little sister was unwilling to say it, she temporarily recognized Zhang Feng as her brother-in-law. But then again, it was indeed a bit of a loss to make everything free. She looked at Zhang Feng and persuaded, "Zhang Feng, if this is free, you'll probably lose a lot of money, right?" Zhang Feng nodded. He didn't want to make everything free, but he couldn't help but say it when he was talking to Gao Ming. It didn't seem right to go back on his words now. Moreover, looking at everyone's fervent gazes, it was as if they were going to eat him up. If he said it wasn't free now, he reckoned that everyone's saliva would drown him, right? However, this didn't seem to be without benefits. At least it could help with publicity. After thinking about it, he put on a bitter smile and said, "Since I said it's free, I won't go back on my words today." As he said that, he looked at the expectant crowd. "Since I, Zhang Feng, said it's free, then it'll definitely be free. Now everyone, start lining up. I'll immediately." Before he could finish, everyone rushed up like wild beasts out of their cages. Zhang Feng saw that the situation wasn't right and hurriedly shouted, "Don't rush, don't rush." But his voice was quickly drowned out by the crowd. Everyone acted as if they didn't hear him. Zhao Ru'er and Zhao Yuer were almost knocked down. This angered him. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Everyone stop. If you continue to fight, it won't be free." As he said that, he looked at Gao Can and the others. "Hurry up and stop them. Otherwise, something will happen later." Gao Can and the others also understood that if they didn't stop the situation now, there would be a stampede later, and people would die. Thus, Gao Can, Yuqi Baoqing, and Yuqi Baolin split into 3 groups, blocking Huang Xiaolong's path. Most of these people were scholars, and didn't have the strength to truss a chicken. They weren't enough in front of Gao Can and were quickly stopped. Zhang Feng glanced at the people who were stopped and shouted, "You guys, if King said it's free. Why are you fighting over it? Did he not know how to spell the word death? If you continue like this, it won't be free later." When everyone heard this, their faces fell. Paper was already expensive, and Xian paper was even more expensive. Paper like this that was more expensive than Xian paper would be sold at a sky-high price. They all stopped and looked at Zhang Feng expectantly, trying to please him. "Shopkeeper Zhang, I won't rob you anymore. Please give me some paper." That's right, that's right. I won't snatch it anymore." Seeing that everyone had admitted their mistakes, Zhang Feng's expression became a little better. It couldn't be helped. Human nature was like this. As long as it was something that was free, they couldn't wait to have more of it. In addition, it was paper that was better than Xian paper. This made them even more crazy. Even if they weren't scholars, they still had to fight for some. Moreover, most of them were scholars and deeply knew the preciousness of this paper. Especially this kind of paper that was better than Xian paper. This was simply a priceless item. Zhang Feng also knew this point, so he didn't intend to blame everyone. He only sighed and said indifferently, "Everyone, don't act rashly. First line up. Later, come up to collect paper. Everyone will have 3 pieces." 3 pieces? Everyone exclaimed in surprise. They weren't exclaiming that there was too much paper given out. but that there was too little paper given out. 3 pieces of paper wasn't enough. Scholars like them had to use a few kilograms of paper in a day, and these 3 pieces weren't even enough for a day. How were they going to use it? Zhang Feng seemed to have seen through everyone's thoughts and sneered. Why? You feel that 3 pieces of paper is too little? Then you don't have to. In fact, he still had a lot of paper in his hands, but he only wanted to give them out today. Firstly, the paper was free. He just wanted to let these guys spread the word of mouth. Secondly, business had to be done for a long time. If he gave them all today, what would he sell tomorrow? Therefore, he had to consider the cost. As for these guys, they usually used ordinary paper. Some families use xian paper. For paper like this, these guys probably wouldn't refuse at all. Even if they paid for it, there would be people crazily fighting for it. Now that he said it was free in advance, their spirits were already so high. If he charged for it, it would probably be even more terrifying. Sure enough, after everyone heard Zhang Feng's words, they quickly shook their heads, indicating that they didn't dare to refuse. Zhang Feng smiled slightly and turned his head to glance at Hao Chujun and the others. Chujun, you and old Jia give these guys the paper. Hao Chujun nodded, waved his hand, and began to distribute the paper. Chapter 21-21. At the same time, in the palace of Chang'an City, Li Shimin had been very busy recently. On one hand, he had to deal with the battle in Qiuzi City. On the other hand, he had to deal with the mess in Daoshan Academy. The battle at Qiuzi City was progressing with an overwhelming advantage. A few days ago, the allied forces of India and the Turks had organized a large-scale siege battle. However, under the deterrence of the ballisti and red coat cannons, as well as the crossfire of Niu Jinda and Li Chengqian's handgun team, in less than 6 hours, the allied forces, which claimed to have 300,000 soldiers, were defeated by less than 30,000 vanguards. Li Chengqian and Niu Jinda took the opportunity to chase the allied forces from Qiuzi City all the way to Tokaria. It was not until the allied forces were completely defeated that they stationed troops in Tokaria. The territory of the Tang dynasty also extended a few hundred kilometers from Qiuzi to the west because of this battle. This boosted Li Shimin's confidence again. Today's morning court was supposed to discuss whether to divide the troops into 2 groups while the morale was high. The 100,000 soldiers of Tubo would cooperate with the 15,000 elites of Qiuzi to attack India. On the other hand, Cheng Yaojin would lead the 100,000 elites of Longyu to attack the Turks. However, the objections of many officials in the court almost made Li Shimin go crazy. The reason also made Li Shimin speechless. Especially the Ministry of Revenue. They handed over the account book and were ready to retire. The reason was that they had no money. Li Shimin did not expect this. After all, the nominal minister of the Ministry of Revenue was Fang Xianling. If it were anyone else, Li Shimin would have waved his brush to leave. If they wanted to leave, they could leave. However, Fang Xianling was different. Li Shimin could not help but wake up from the excitement of the great victory. After all, the Tang dynasty was weak. Although they had Zhang Feng's money, they still needed some time. It was just like what Zhang Feng said to him before he left. The best way was to wait until after the next spring harvest. With enough food, it wouldn't be a problem to travel all the way to the end of the world. To put it bluntly, they were poor. And there were 3 things that were most consumed in war. There were also silver taels, provisions, and armaments. Now the problem of armaments could almost be solved. As long as an army of 100,000 was equipped with 10,000 muskets, a few cannons, and improved crossbows, it was almost enough to crush him. However, soldiers needed to eat. Ever since the morning court session ended, Wei Zheng and the others were like flies, surrounding Li Shimin. Even when he was eating, these people still surrounded him. It was as if as long as he didn't relent, they wouldn't have any fun today. Li Shimin had no choice but to give up the idea of pursuing the victory. After all, they knew each other best. Could the current Tang dynasty fight? He couldn't. In the Imperial Garden, Li Shimin finally had some free time. He looked at the dark sky and stood by the lake with his hands behind his back. No one knew what he was thinking. Little Gizi stood not far away. Although he was a little worried, He didn't dare to come forward. At this moment, Yu Qigong hid by a peony bush and gestured to little Gizi. Seeing this, little Gizi looked at Li Shimin and reluctantly walked over. Little Gizi, how is His Majesty's mood right now? Yu Qigong asked directly. As he spoke, he didn't forget to give little Gizi a cigarette. Little Gizi lit the cigarette and sighed. His Majesty has been standing here for 2 hours. I don't know how His Majesty is feeling right now, but if Duke of E has nothing to do, it's best not to bother His Majesty at this time. Hearing this, Yu Qigong couldn't help but frown. If it was an ordinary matter, I would know, but this is an emergency in Jiangnan. Jiangnan? Little Gizi raised his eyebrows. He glanced at Li Shimin and asked, Duke of E, you mean Prince Zhang? Right. Seeing Yu Qigong's affirmation, little Gizi didn't dare delay. He hastily said, wait a moment, I'll go report this. As he spoke, little Gizi braced himself and went to report. Yu Qigong paced back and forth, his heart in turmoil. After a while, little Gizi hastily called out to Yu Qigong, then hastily tidied his clothes and walked forward. At this moment, Li Shimin had returned to his normal state. He was no longer in his berserk state. Yuqi, how are things in Jiangnan? Seeing that the emperor was directly asking, Yu Qigong hastily said, Your Majesty, we've just received a report from our spies. The situation in Jiangnan is very bad. Yu Qigong gave a detailed report of the situation in Jiangnan. Li Shimin's expression could not help but turn cold. Although he had always been on guard against the situation in Jiangnan, and although he had always been paying attention to this special place, it was peaceful on the surface. Moreover, there were too many things going on, so he had never truly understood the situation. Now that he heard Yu Qigong's report, this place couldn't be any more chaotic. It had become the back garden of the 5 clans and 7 clans. This, if Zhang Feng hadn't come to Jiangnan, he wouldn't have known that this seemingly peaceful Jiangnan was hiding so many things. The reason we allowed your clan to develop in Jiangnan was to suppress these people. Yu Qigong, why was the news we received all good? How should you be punished? Seeing Li Shimin's anger, Yu Qigong's expression changed. He hastily knelt and said, Your Majesty, please listen to this subject's explanation. Actually, these clans were very well hidden in the beginning, but because of Yuer's matter, there were some changes. In addition, Fengzi didn't deliberately hide Zhang Feng's trip to Jiangnan, which led to the current situation. Then you mean to say that the current situation was caused by Fengzi and has nothing to do with you at all? Li Shimin was furious. He roared. Then what use do we have for the Yuqi clan? Chapter 21-22. With a swish, a fine layer of cold sweat appeared on Yu Qigong's forehead. When the Tang dynasty was first established and Li Shimin ascended the throne, Yu Qigong's family all migrated to Jiangnan. Cheng Yaojin's family also moved to Longyu. Almost all the forces that belonged to Li Shimin in the imperial court had infiltrated the important places of the entire Tang dynasty. The purpose was to serve as a deterrent, and to have an unexpected effect at the critical moment. But now Li Shimin understood. It seemed to be a little redundant. Originally, he thought that Zhang Feng's trip to Jiangnan this time should be safe under the protection of the Yuqi family's forces in Jiangnan. But now, calculating the time, Zhang Feng should have arrived in Jiangnan at this time. Thinking of these tangled relationships and family forces, Li Shimin had the idea of directly sending people to attack. Could Zhang Feng solve it? Zhang Feng's importance to the Tang dynasty at this moment was more precious than anything else. Even if he slaughtered a city, what could he do? But the problem now was that he couldn't go to Jiangnan. Once people in the imperial court overly interfered in Jiangnan's affairs, his identity as the emperor would inevitably be exposed. If he didn't take any action, how could Zhang Feng face so many complicated matters alone? Seeing Li Shimin's gloomy and terrible face, Yu Qigong couldn't help but panic. Your Majesty, we just learned that Mr. Zihuai and several great scholars of Mount Xiao have learned of Jiangnan's affairs, so they sent Gao Qin as soon as possible. He should arrive in Jiangnan today or tomorrow. So I think Zhang Feng's safety shouldn't be a problem. Li Shimin raised his sleeve and said angrily, Fengzi's safety is guaranteed. But it's easy to dodge an open sword but hard to guard against a hidden arrow. What should we do about the key problem? What is your Yuchi family doing now? This, Yuchi Gong wiped the sweat from his forehead. Your Majesty, if my guess is correct, the Yuchi family should have already received news of Zhang Feng's arrival in Jiangnan. Once they know, they will definitely do their best to help. As for the Yuchi family's future in Jiangnan, this subject has already thought about it and has written a letter to my uncle. Don't be in such a hurry to express your determination. Li Shimin interrupted Yuchi Gong with some irritation. After a moment of silence, he said, Fengzi should have his own plans for going to Jiangnan this time. Furthermore, I have warned him of the dangers of Jiangnan. Furthermore, I know that the old man will not sit by and do nothing, so immediately help me send a secret edict to the Hunan Dao, Jiangnan Dao, and Huainan Dao provincial governors' manors. After Li Shimin issued 3 secret edicts in a row, his expression relaxed slightly. With the support of the 3 provincial governor manors, Zhang Feng should be able to survive this crisis. Quickly transfer 1,000 elites from the Jinwu guards and equip them with the latest equipment. Secretly send Fang Yai to Jiangnan to protect Zhang Feng. If there are any blind people, murderous intent flashed through Li Shimin's eyes. Yuchi Gong's heart trembled. He hurriedly accepted the order and said, This subject will do it immediately. Yuchi Gong hurriedly paid his respects and hurriedly slipped away. At this moment, the emperor had not punished the Yuchi family. This was already a great favor. If he did not leave now and the emperor reacted later, he would be in trouble. But Yuchi Gong also knew. From this moment on, the Tang dynasty could be considered a true change. This was a fundamental qualitative change. Jiangnan was the economic lifeline of the Tang dynasty. In the beginning, these people had hidden their fangs extremely well. However, after learning that Zhang Feng had gone to Jiangnan, they revealed their ferocious fangs. It was Zhang Feng, this freak, who was at a disadvantage. He even killed people in the street of Chang'an city and used Chang'an city as bait to fish for Duke Chun. This kind of thing should be solved by that bastard Zhang Feng, right? Otherwise he wouldn't have done it. If Zhang Feng's toys were to spread to Jiangnan, the consequences would be. But this bastard boy messed up Jiangnan. What on earth did he want to do? Didn't the Xie family say that they would become Zhang Feng's right-hand man? Why was there no news until now? One incident after another caused Yuchi Gong's head to hurt. He really did not know what Zhang Feng wanted to do. He also did not know what Zhang Feng wanted to do. He only hoped that things would not get out of hand. Once that time came, perhaps the Tang dynasty would usher in a terrible change. As for what kind of change it would be, only a ghost would know. But Yuchi Gong knew that when the time came, the Tang dynasty might go through the experience of the Sui dynasty again. As soon as he left the Vermilion Bird Gate, Yuchi Gong was intercepted by Cheng Yaojin, who had been waiting at the gate for a long time. The two of them did not say anything. After they went into the private room of the Chang'an Hotel, Cheng Yaojin asked, What did His Majesty say? His Majesty issued 3 secret edicts in a row. I think this time there will be a big change in Jiangnan, and the war between us and the 5 families and 7 clans is about to start. Cheng Yaojin could not help but frown when he heard that. Do you think Old Feng and the others already knew about it? Otherwise, why did they try so hard to persuade His Majesty to send troops in the morning court today? Yuchi Gong could not help but be shocked when he heard that. Could it be? Chapter 21-23. Li Shimin was still worried. After putting everything aside, he rushed to White Deer College. At this moment, the number of people in the academy had more than doubled compared to before Zhang Feng left. As a result, many of the empty classrooms and houses were now filled to the brim. There were even some new houses and churches that had been added outside the classrooms. However, even so, it could only accommodate the current students. At this moment, the entire academy was filled with the sounds of recitation. Li Shimin's arrival did not alarm anyone. Instead, the old scholar was slowly brewing tea in the old scholar's villa, while waiting for his arrival. About 2 hours later, the old scholar had just returned to the villa. When he saw the restless Li Shimin, he knew what had happened. I didn't know you were coming. Please forgive me. Only then did the old scholar know Li Shimin's identity. Now that Zhang Feng was not around, he could not address the emperor directly. Hence, he compromised and called him emperor. Li Shimin did not blame him. Instead, he asked while brewing tea and reading his textbook with relish. You already knew about what happened in Jiangnan, didn't you? The old scholar nodded his head and said, That's right. However, this is Fengzi's own choice. Besides, I've already told you about Jiangnan. But you know this kid, so it's up to him now. Also, I've said that I could use Zhang Xuan's connections, but he rejected me. Why? Li Shimin looked up at the old scholar and asked. He did not know about these things. After all, the night before he left, Zhang Feng and the old scholar had chatted for almost the entire night. No one knew what they talked about. The old scholar poured himself a cup of tea and narrowed his eyes. Fengzi is like the teacup, and the entire Tang dynasty is like the tea in the teapot. He knows what he can do and what he can endure. Furthermore, he cherishes his life the most. He won't blindly do something. Of course, this is excluding the matter of Qianwanli. However, it is precisely because of this that I did not object to him going to Jiangnan. Otherwise, even if the old man risked his life, I would have kept him in the college. This is also Yu Shernan's intention. Li Shimin understood a little. His eyebrows relaxed slightly. I want to know everything, including his plan to go to Jiangnan. Alas, the old scholar knew that this would happen sooner or later. When Zhang Feng decided to go to Jiangnan, he knew that Li Shimin would come to him. After all, Zhang Feng wasn't someone who would just sit still. Once he made a fuss, the world would be turned upside down. At this moment, Li Shimin came straight to the point. The old scholar lit a cigarette and sucked slowly. After finishing the cigarette, he said, Fengzi wants to build the Tang dynasty in Jiangnan, and even the largest business alliance in the world. Li Shimin's eyelids twitched. Isn't Chang'an City the first choice? The old scholar shook his head. It's true that Chang'an is the power center of the entire Tang dynasty. But because of this relationship, it's not suitable. As for why, I think the second master should know best. Li Shimin smacked his lips and said nothing in the end. Indeed, although it was the best choice to have him in Chang'an City at this moment, if the war with Guanlong and the 5 families and 7 hopes were to break out, if there was another siege than last time, 8 waters helped him out. After all, it was just a coincidence. It was just a test by Guanlong. And once they really shed all pretense of cordiality, it would not be so easy to deal with. Therefore, the business move to the south and the capital move to Luoyang was almost a tacit agreement. The meaning was the same. At this moment, the old scholar continued. Fengzi is a very far-sighted person. He once told you that the battle between him and Guanlong and the 5 families and 7 kingdoms was bound to start. Instead of waiting for death, it's better to take this opportunity to go directly to Jiangnan and secretly move all the industries there under the pretext of Although it's a little difficult at first, once the north-south business route, the waterway, and the Handao business route are connected, there's a glimmer of hope before the 5 families and 7 kingdoms and Guanlong form an alliance. However, the second master also knows that although the Xie family has fallen, it will still be Zhang Feng's right-hand man. Moreover, there's the Wang family. If I'm not wrong, the Yang family should also be roped in by Zhang Feng. When speaking of the Yang family, the old scholar could not help but glance at Li Shimin. After all, the old scholar did not know how Li Shimin would feel about the matter of the Sui dynasty. Sure enough, after the old scholar mentioned the Yang family, Li Shimin's expression changed. However, at this moment, Li Shimin also knew that this matter was beyond his control. However, when the old scholar mentioned the Yang family, Li Shimin saw a glimmer of hope. Li Shimin had always sent people to keep an eye on the Yang family. After all, this clan was not simple. But after years of suppression, the Yang family was also bitterly looking for a chance to turn things around. And this was undoubtedly an excellent opportunity. However, he did not know if the Yang family had eyes. If they did not have eyes, it would only be a matter of lifting a hand to destroy them. Compared to the 5 families and 7 clans, what kind of waves could a desolate clan cause? Chapter 21-24. At the same time, Hangzhou Prefecture. As one of the 8 great families of Hangzhou Prefecture, the Yuqi family, they had long changed their house sign to the Yu residence. This matter had caused an uproar in Hangzhou these days, but it quickly subsided. It was even left unsettled. There were rumors that it was because Yuqiyu had been impeached, causing the emperor to fly into a rage. Because of this, the Duke of Yuqi Jingda, was implicated. Yuqi Jingda was also rumored to not be related to the Yuqi family. In order to save their lives, the Yuqi family had no choice but to change their name. Moreover, the Hangzhou Prefecture had specially ordered that the Yuqi family was not to be mentioned. The Yuqi family's connections in Hangzhou also made everyone feel that the Yuqi family had committed a big taboo this time. Why did you have to have the same surname as the Duke of Yi? This was great. They had no choice but to change their name. Moreover, during this period of time, there were people discussing this matter after meals. It was rumored that the Hangzhou provincial governor's office had ordered dozens of people to be beaten with rods. This time, everyone shut their mouths. In more than 10 days, the Yuqi family's matter was left unsettled. No one was willing to mention this matter, to avoid being implicated. Moreover, the recent matter of the capital's great scholar, the first and youngest duke of the Tang dynasty, the youngest Confucian scholar, and the youngest chancellor of the academy, coming to Chang'an also made everyone forget about the Yu family's change of name. Moreover, wasn't it just changing the name? Yuqiyu, wasn't this equivalent to not changing it? This was not a big deal. As a result, this matter was also forgotten. Everyone was discussing the matter of Zhang Feng coming from Jiangnan. There were rumors. The last time Yuqiyu went to the capital, she had a wonderful thing with Zhang Feng, and Yuqiyu went to the capital using the name Yu. Perhaps, the Yuqi family changed their name because of this matter, right? One had to know. There were only a few people in history who could obtain a noble title in Chang'an, and make the emperor personally issue an imperial edict to open an academy. How much influence could such a person have? Such a person coming to Jiangnan, what would happen? Who in Jiangnan didn't know Yuqiyu's name? At this moment, Zhang Feng coming to Jiangnan was bound to clash with these families. After these ordinary people weighed the pros and cons, they still decided to hang up high. At that time, if they offended either side, they would not be able to bear the consequences. At this moment, in the living room of the Yu family, Yu Qihong paced back and forth anxiously with his hands behind his back. In the main hall, all of the Yu family's relatives, including more than 10 people, were restless. The matter of Zhang Feng coming to Jiangnan had been going on for a few days. Counting the days, it should have been time. But why hasn't there been any news yet? Reporting. At this moment, the sound of hurried footsteps and the whinny of a horse could be heard at the entrance of the Yu residence. Hearing this, Yu Qihong's eyes lit up, and everyone in the hall turned to look at the door. Master, Prince Zhang has arrived in Jiangnan. And they arrived yesterday. What? Yu Qihong's expression changed. Why didn't he come to the Yu family? Master, I heard that Prince Zhang bumped into someone from the Tang family. I just received news today that Prince Zhang is opening a Xian paper shop. Rice paper? Everyone frowned slightly. They didn't understand. Logically speaking, the first thing this kid did when he came to Hangzhou after learning about Yu was to come to the Yu family. But why hadn't he come to visit the Yu family yet, and instead opened a Xian paper shop to go against the Tang family? Wasn't this just nonsense? Nonsense. Even we wouldn't dare to openly fall out with the Tang family. This kid should have come to negotiate with us. Brute. How can someone like this be worthy of our Yu? In my opinion, he's not even as good as those noble sons. Isn't that so? I don't know what that guy Jingda is thinking. How can someone like this be worthy of Yu? I think that Duke Zhao is Lord Zhongxuan's eldest son. I even asked someone to inquire about Zhongxuan's family, and they said that he hasn't taken a wife. Shut up. Yu Qihong frowned slightly and shouted coldly. Instantly, everyone shut their mouths. In fact, Yu Qihong knew what they were thinking. The Yuqi family's present status was almost entirely due to Yu Qigong, and most importantly, the emperor's tacit approval. Otherwise, how could the Yuqi family be where they were today? Previously, the Yuqi family had kept a low profile in Chang'an, but after Yuer's emergence, these people's hearts had become wild. Yuqi Gong had said more than once that they couldn't get involved with the court officials. Otherwise, the Yuqi family would be in big trouble. However, these people only cared about benefits. Why would they think so much? This time, because of Zhang Feng, Yuqi Gong had said in a secret letter that as long as they could cling on to Zhang Feng's thigh, the Yuqi family would definitely soar in the future. However, as the head of the family, he couldn't say much about some things. But it was also because of this that these people were so arrogant and thought that it was all because of Yuqi Yu. When he thought of this, Yuqi Hong felt his head swell. Keep talking. Yuqi Hong's cold shout made the crowd temporarily stop talking. At this moment, the page boy said, I heard that the Tang family came out to cause trouble today, and that Zhao Yuer from the Zhao family also appeared at that place today for some reason. Rumor has it that it's because that Prince Zhang has taken a fancy to that girl from the Zhao family. What did you say? At this moment, a cold and slightly arrogant female voice made the page boy tremble all over. Yuqi Hong couldn't help but look at the pretty girl at the door and sighed. You. Why are you here? Not to mention that all these halos were concentrated on one person. Especially Yuqi Gong's words. Don't offend Zhang Feng. Even if he had to abandon everything he had to stand on Zhang Feng's side. Furthermore, combined with what Yuqi Yu had brought back from the capital, Yuqi Hong knew. The people surrounding Zhang Feng were none other than the emperor and the others. Especially the name change this time. This was a secret edict sent by Yuqi Gong. Otherwise, would these old things have agreed to change the name? However, there were some things that he couldn't say, and didn't dare to say. If he did, then what awaited the Yuqi family would be the emperor's wrath. This time, Zhang Feng's arrival had also caused Yuqi Hong to feel immense pressure. However, this pressure was also a path to glory. He just didn't know if he could withstand it. He also didn't know if these old things in his family would do anything out of line. If they knew that even the emperor was friends with Zhang Feng, and that the imperial relative they yearned for, Zhang Sunchong, was only Zhang Feng's student, what would they do? What kind of expression would they have? Yuqi Hong rubbed his forehead, looked at the exquisite cigarette box on the table, and couldn't help but fall silent. At the same time, in Yuezhou Prefecture, not far from Hangzhou Prefecture, at this time, the sky was already turned upside down. All the scholars, noble ladies, and ordinary people rushed to the streets as if it was the new year. Because today the youngest great scholar from Chang, and Zhang Feng, actually rented a shop in Wenyan Square to sell a magical paper. This was definitely a flourishing era. One had to know. Yuhang had always been a paradise for paper making. The art of making paper here was almost monopolized by the aristocratic families. All the rice paper was expensive enough to make people uncomfortable. However, even so, it still made everyone rush like ducks. However, there was a rumor that someone in Chang and made a paper whiter than rice paper, and even as thin as a cicada's wing. In Jiangnan, only the real influential families were qualified to see it, and some documents from Chang and were written with such words. They could only peek at some things from these things. However, today Prince Zhang actually wanted to buy paper on the street. What was this? This was a slap in the face of those aristocratic families. Wasn't he tired of living? Bang bang bang. Along with the sound of gongs and drums, Gao Can's voice was as loud as a bell. Dear villagers, today is the first time my teacher came to Jiangnan, and seeing that the students are still worried about the problem of paper, my teacher decided to sell the white paper from Chang, and at half the price of rice paper. And this price will always be maintained, and we will always sell this kind of paper in Jiangnan. Hearing this, everyone was in an uproar. However, at this moment, a young man in a black robe, under the compliments of a group of servants holding sticks, appeared beside Gao Kansas looking at the pile of white paper behind him. His eyelids couldn't help but twitch. But soon he hid it. He asked, "Is what you said true?" Gao Can looked down at the young man who was as thin as a chicken and smiled. Of course my teacher's words never go back on them, but except for you, anyone can buy it. Hiss. In an instant, Gao Can's words made all the onlookers couldn't help but gasp. Everyone couldn't help but step back, as if something big was about to happen. Chapter 21-26. On the other side, Hao Chujun and Jia Daoren also noticed what was going on here. Even Gao Ming and Zhang Feng, who was arguing with Zhao Yuer, were stunned. Everyone was stunned by Gao Can's voice. After all, Gao Can was tall and burly, and just by looking at his appearance, he had a kind of intimidating aura. In addition, he was looking down at that stubborn young master from above. All of this made people think that this guy was definitely going to be in big trouble today. The young man in the black robe was also stunned. After being stunned for a while, he came back to his senses after being reminded by the servant. He bared his teeth and glared at Gao Kansas. What a scoundrel! Do you know who Lao Tzu is? How dare you talk to me like that? Even your master has to lower his head when he sees me. You think you're worthy? Zhang Feng, what kind of man are you? Get your ass over here right now. This voice instantly shocked all the onlookers. Everyone couldn't help but step back. Who is this person? Zhang Feng elbowed Zhao Yuer, who was twitching at the corner of her mouth, and asked. Zhao Yuer looked at Zhang Feng suspiciously and asked, You really don't know? Zhang Feng shrugged and looked at Gao Can, who was strangling the young man's neck, and said, Big sister, do you think I know? I've only been in Hangzhou for 2 days. He is from the Yu family. Zhao Yuer looked at Zhang Feng strangely and asked, I say, are you the reincarnation of a jinx? Why did I hear that when you were in Chang, and you caused a stir in Chang'an, and now you're in Hangzhou? Big sister, let's talk about the Yu family first. Why are they here to make trouble? Zhang Feng knew the relationship between the various clans in Jiangnan very well. Originally, in this era, the division of the Jiangxia region was very vague, and the forces here were intricate. When you went out, you might meet dozens of people from aristocratic families. He didn't know which clans there were, and now the Yu family popped up? No, the Yu family? Could it be? Zhang Feng suddenly thought of something and asked, How many Yu families are there in Jiangnan? Ahem, old master, as far as I know, if I'm not wrong, this Yu family might be Madame's family. Jia Daoren whispered into Zhang Feng's ear. Instantly, Zhang Feng's expression changed slightly. He hurriedly berated. Gao Can, put him down. Zhao Ru'er sat on the stool nonchalantly and looked at Zhang Feng. She was covering her mouth and doing something, but it wasn't hard to tell that this little lass was definitely smiling from the way she moved her shoulders. But how could Zhang Feng care so much at this moment? Amidst the scolding, the pale and slightly emaciated young man was put down. Once he was put down, the young man first gasped for breath for a moment, then hurriedly and instinctively took a few steps back. He glanced at the unresponsive Gao Can and said, Zhang Feng, you bastard, you bastard. You. I didn't know you were young master you. Just now my student offended you. Let's talk inside. Zhang Feng smiled and cupped his fists. When the young man saw this, he originally wanted to get angry, but after glancing at Gao Can, he smacked his lips and finally gave up. He lowered his head and followed Zhang Feng into the store. But after seeing Zhao Ru'er and Zhao Yuer, the young man's eyes never left the two of them. Ahem, young master you, right? How is Yuer? Zhang Feng asked straightforwardly the moment he entered the room. The black-robed man sized up Zhang Feng and said, You're Zhang Feng? The one Yuer mentioned? Zhang Feng also didn't know why this guy was here, but it seemed like he was his brother-in-law. Yes, I'm Zhang Feng. Oh. The black-robed young man made a sound of acknowledgement, and then looked around the store. His eyes then involuntarily fell on the white papers in the store. I heard from you, or that you're very famous in Chang'an, the youngest great scholar, the dean. And these papers should be just one of your properties? The black-robed young man's non-committal words made Zhang Feng vaguely sense something, so he was no longer in a hurry. After greeting him, he sat down and said with a smile, Yes, what you heard is almost all true. May I know what business you have with me? I want all the white papers here, as well as the authorization of all the papers in Jiangnan in the future. Why should I? The smile on Zhang Feng's face disappeared. He looked at the young man indifferently and said again, "If you are said this, I would definitely agree. But who are you?" "I." The black-robed young man was about to speak when he was suddenly choked by Zhang Feng's words. He really didn't expect Zhang Feng to give such an answer. "I'm from Hangzhou Prefecture's Yu family. Of course this is Yuezhou, and I'm from the Yuezhou branch. When I heard that you were here, I just wanted to come and see. As for this, then are you the person in charge of the Yu family?" Zhang Feng asked. "No. Then who are you?" "I'm from Yuezhou's Yu family's third branch. Speaking of which, you are my cousin. My name is Yuqi, Yu Suqian." Elm tree lump? The Tang dynasty's naming skills once again opened Zhang Feng's eyes. Yu Suqian, wasn't this the elm tree lump? But now was not the time to talk about this. The main thing was to figure out what this person meant by coming here. Moreover, whether this kid was sent by the Yu family to inquire about information or to probe, this had to be figured out. Otherwise, what would he do when he went back to the Yu family? Now his relationship with the three women was simply messy to the extreme. Although he and Jingshu and Yu were husband and wife, they were not husband and wife in name. Jingshu was better, at least they could still stay together, but Yu was different. If someone were to find out about this, wouldn't that ruin her reputation? This was also the main reason why Zhang Feng had to come to Jiangnan this time. As for Zhang Yuyao, she was now the most troublesome thing for Zhang Feng. He really didn't know what to do. But no matter how much he delayed, he could only take the three women to Chang'an, and to hold a grand wedding after Yu's matter was settled. He couldn't delay any longer. Chapter 21-27. Well, Prince Zhang, I came here this time mainly because I was curious. I heard that you came to Yuezhou, so I wanted to see brother-in-law's fame. Brother-in-law's poems in Jiangnan are simply maddening. But they didn't expect that their respected poem god actually came to Jiangnan. Zhang Feng was stunned and asked, "How can this be?" "I came here today because I heard that the Gao family wanted to make trouble, so I was outside. I hope brother-in-law doesn't blame me." Zhang Feng couldn't help but be stunned. This guy just wanted to see him. Although Zhang Feng still doubted this guy's words, the current situation was that one more ally was better than one less. Zhang Feng couldn't help but relax his expression. He handed over a cigarette with a smile and said, "So that's how it is. Brother Yu, I have wronged you. Come, please sit. Old Jia, serve the tea." After a series of greetings, Yu Suqian looked at the piles of white paper in the store and asked, "Brother-in-law, did you really make this white paper?" "No, these were all made by my friends. They did belong to me earlier, but I'm used to being lazy. Before I came to Jiangnan, I gave these things to my brothers." Zhang Feng was telling the truth. However, Zhang Feng was the only one who knew how much of the truth was true. However, for Yu Suqian, this was undoubtedly somewhat disappointing. He came here today because 2 of the top 10 beauties of Jiangnan were actually gathered in Zhang Feng's store. So he wanted to take a look and find an opportunity to strike up a conversation. As for Zhang Feng, he was only here to confirm if he was really the person in the rumors. After all, even if one of the titles was just one, it was definitely not something a 20-year-old boy could have. Not to mention these things that others might not necessarily touch in their lifetime. However, just in a short conversation, he was shocked to find that this Zhang Feng was really that person. This news had to be sent back to the main family as soon as possible. First of all, they could make the right choice as early as possible. After all, although the Yu family wasn't a large family, the competition was still extremely cruel. Especially for people like them, it was even more difficult. It wasn't that they didn't want to do it, but even if they wanted to, they wouldn't dare. After all, the reputation of the Duke of East in the court was far too great. Once a grudge was formed in the court or the emperor was enraged, it was very likely that the entire clan would be exterminated. Therefore, if he wanted to get up, he had to wait for a suitable opportunity. As for Zhang Feng's arrival in Jiangnan, Yu Qigong had personally given the order that they had to change their surnames before Zhang Feng arrived. In the beginning, they really didn't want to. After all, this was an act that disgraced their ancestors. However, After thinking about Zhang Feng's identity, what Zhang Feng wanted to do in Jiangnan, and the mysterious relationship behind Zhang Feng, he decided to give up. In an instant, Yu Qihong made his decision, changing the name of the clan. This was something he had no choice but to do. If they didn't do this, they would be attacked by the 5 families and 7 clans at the first moment. Even if they didn't do anything, it wouldn't do. Therefore, in the past half a month, the elders in the clan had issued warnings to almost everyone in the clan, from 70 to 80 years old, to children who had just learned to speak, to the servants in the family, and to anyone who had any relationship with the clan. Even the Duke of Yi, who was far away in Chang'an, had personally issued orders to the various provincial governors in Jiangnan, causing everyone to shut their mouths for a short period of time. However, the most important thing was, when the Yuqi family had come to Jiangnan, they had hidden their surname. Therefore, changing back to their original name didn't cause any waves. However, these were only things that ordinary people knew. As for what the 5 families and 7 clans thought, only these people knew. However, after truly understanding Zhang Feng's true identity and seeing the white paper with his own eyes, Yu Suqian's admiration for Zhang Feng almost overflowed. He grabbed Zhang Feng's hand and said with a smile, "Brother-in-law, you see, you're not familiar with Jiangnan's matters. Moreover, you said that you're going to Jiangnan, which is equivalent to going home. How can you stay in the inn? Let's go, little brother. I'll go prepare the sedan chair. Let's go home." Yu Suqian's attitude made Zhang Feng puzzled. However, he still declined. "I won't go for the time being. If I want to go, I will naturally go. If brother Yu has something to say, there's no harm in saying it. However, the matter between me and you, shouldn't be made public for the time being. I have other plans. For the time being, I hope brother Yu won't randomly address me, okay?" Hearing Zhang Feng's words, Yu Suqian raised his head and said, "Hey, brother Zhang, rest assured, I understand." While speaking, Yu Suqian winked at Zhang Feng and glanced at the 2 women outside the door, revealing a smile that everyone understood. The corner of Zhang Feng's mouth twitched when he saw this. However, he didn't explain much. This kind of thing was originally a muddle. The more he said, the harder it would be to explain clearly. "By the way, let me ask you something serious. How is it? Before coming, I heard that you had an accident. What's going on?" Chapter 21-28. Seeing that Zhang Feng was asking about business, Yu Suqian also became serious. He said, "The cause of all this is that time when you personally went to purchase minerals and buy dye easy. As for the reason, after you received the letter from her cousin, old Yu, she went to Chang'an. Before that, the stubborn people of Jiangnan, as well as the children of aristocratic families, came in an endless stream to propose marriage, but Yu was still able to deal with them. After all, Yu is the head of the top 10 beauties of Jiangnan." "You wait?" Zhang Feng asked in surprise. "Jiangnan's top 10 beauties?" Yu Suqian saw that Zhang Feng was puzzled and patted his forehead. "I forgot about this. The top 10 beauties are the rankings made by the children of aristocratic families in Jiangnan. This ranking has existed for at least 100 years. In this top 10 ranking, Yu is first. I don't need to say it, There are also the 2 outside the door. They are ranked 3rd and 7th respectively. As for the second, it is an illegitimate daughter of the Wu family and a Persian girl. And there is..." After some explanation, Zhang Feng finally knew the origin of the top 10 beauties. However, Zhang Feng couldn't help but feel a little pressure. Compared to Jing Shu, this was undoubtedly the most stressful situation. After all, Jing Shu had only gotten her way because she had accidentally broken her music score. Moreover, it could be said that she had gotten Jing Shu with her own abilities. Moreover, Yen Lai Lu was the property of the royal family. All the rights of explanation were not spoken by the royal family. Naturally, no one dared to make trouble. Moreover, with his reputation in Chang'an, no one dared to say anything. However, these names didn't work in Jiangnan. It would only attract more hatred. In particular, these top 10 beauties were almost all from aristocratic families, or had long been targeted. At this time, Zhang Feng also realized where the pressure was. If others knew that he did that to you, Would it cause public outrage? Thinking about it, Zhang Feng shuddered a little. He rubbed his face and said with a sigh of relief, "Brother you continue." Yu Suqian looked at Zhang Feng in surprise. Seeing that Zhang Feng was really fine, he couldn't help but look at Zhang Feng a bit more. She said, "Actually, when I left last time, it was because of a servant of the Yu family who got drunk and said something wrong. He said that there was an important person in Chang, and who had taken a fancy to you, and that you was going to Chang, and under imperial orders. However, this matter caused an uproar in Jiangnan. In the end, Brother Zhang's poem in Chang, and as well as various other matters, spread back to Jiangnan. This made everyone go crazy. Originally, this matter should have ended here. However, after you came back, things changed again. Speaking of which, I have to say a few words to you, Brother Zhang. You already did that with Yu. At the very least, you should give her a letter of appointment or something. You see, the news of Yu losing her virginity has spread like wildfire after Yu came back. Things like Zhang Feng abandoning her after sleeping with her, and things like crusading against you. There are so many of them. In the end, Yu came back and looked for minerals everywhere. This was why he was targeted. As a result, the Yu family's industry in Jiangnan was also squeezed by at least 5 major families. Do you know how much Yu suffered last time in order to gather iron ore for you? In the end, Yu Suqian's face became dignified. It seemed that Zhang Feng really did something to abandon her after sleeping with her. Zhang Feng touched his nose and coughed. Ahem, this is because I didn't consider it thoroughly. Something happened in Chang, and at that time, so I came after learning that Yu had an accident. By the way, my guard sent a message saying that Yu was in danger. When my people returned to Chang, and they were intercepted. Do you know who did this? There is such a thing? Yu Suqian was also surprised, and his face suddenly changed. I really don't know about this. I just know that a month ago, the Wu family came to the main family because of the iron ore. They said that you were promised to use 10 years of mining rights of an iron ore in exchange for you. However, none of us knew about this. I don't know what happened in the end. I only heard that there was a physical conflict, and it was suppressed by the provincial governor's mansion. After that, I heard that some people broke into the Wu family at night, and were intercepted and killed by the Wu family. Are these people your people? The more Zhang Feng listened, the more gloomy his face became. There was really a problem, and the Wu family. Who was behind it? The Wang family. It seemed that when he was in Chang, and he didn't hurt him. Since your Wu family dog wants to die, I Zhang Feng will help you. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng asked again, Brother Yu, I came to Jiangnan this time for this matter. So you can rest assured that in this world, no one dares to touch my people. Yu Suqian was only 21 or 22 years old, similar to Zhang Feng's age. Moreover, this guy was also a prodigal with a good-looking appearance. Although Zhang Feng could only be regarded as handsome and not as handsome as him, at this time, he gave a feeling that he needed to look up to. At the beginning, he was also puzzled. Yu was the biggest hope of the Yu family, and he had seen countless young talents over the years. Yu Suqian took a fancy to Zhang Feng because of his future and literary talent, but at this time, Yu Suqian understood that he was wrong. Everyone was wrong. Although Zhang Feng was just saying it casually, there was a hint of danger in his tone. Was this the real Zhang Feng? Yu Suqian couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. These damn bastards were finally going to be unlucky. Chapter 21-29. Outside the door. Zhao Yu watched as more and more people fought over the white paper at the door. Looking at the soft white paper in their hands, even she and her sister Zhao Ru felt their hearts ache. After all, they were members of aristocratic families. They knew the price of rice paper better than anyone else. How could an ordinary family afford it? But today Prince Zhang actually gave away paper for free? Wasn't this a slap to everyone's face? What was Prince Zhang trying to do? Moreover, this was all money. Even if he had more money, there was no need to waste it like this, right? In such a short time, Zhang Feng had given out at least 100 caddies of white paper. How much would it cost even if it was 1,000 strings of cash per caddy? Moreover, they were calculating according to the price of rice paper. Moreover, this price was only low and not high. If this continued, the Gao family would be the first to suffer. What was going on with these two? If someone from the Gao family finds out, do you think he'll come for revenge? Zhao Rua looked at the chaotic scene and asked jokingly. Zhao Yue rolled up the white paper in her hand into a bucket. She propped up her chin and thought for a moment. I think if the Gao family has any brains, they won't come. Zhao Rua looked at Zhao Yue in surprise and asked, why do you say that? Look at this white paper, and you'll understand. Zhao Yue pointed at the white paper in Zhao Ruer's hand. Zhao Ruer couldn't help but be surprised. This paper. What's wrong with it? Do you still remember the rumors from Chang'an? Zhao Yuer's face was solemn as she looked at the tightly shut door behind her and said, if I'm not wrong, the person inside should be the one who wreaked havoc in Chang'an, and even opened a class in White Deer Academy. The one who made Master Yushan vomit blood in anger, Zhang Feng. Ah. Zhao Ruer couldn't help but exclaim in shock. This can't be the same person, right? Moreover, this is a little too unbelievable. I heard that this paper was made by someone called Lao Li or something. Sis, think about it. If this kind of paper existed, why did it have to be released now of all times? Also, don't forget that person from the Yuqi clan. That person is also called Yuer. Rumor has it that Yuqi was introduced to Zhang Feng by the Duke of Yi. And then you should know what happened afterwards. With that said, Zhao Ruer's expression changed slightly. Zhang Feng. In Jiangnan, she had only heard of his name, but never seen him in person. Everyone was trying to guess the identity of this person. However, no one had ever seen this Zhang Feng as a certain Zhang Feng, but this bastard didn't say anything himself. Instead, he didn't look like a great scholar at all. Instead, he acted like a commoner. How could people associate him with the high and mighty Zhang Feng? Now that Zhao Yuer had said that, only then did Zhao Ruer realize the severity of the problem. His face couldn't help but turn pale. He had long heard from his clan that a powerful figure had come from Chang'an and was going to cooperate with the Li family of Zhao County, and even the other 5 surnames and 7 clans to deal with him. However, he hadn't said who this person was. But now, the person was right in front of them. However, who would dare to deal with such a person? Putting aside whether the rumors in Chang'an were true or false, just the 2 identities of the great scholar and the dean of White Deer College were enough to intimidate many people. If someone dared to make a move against him openly, wasn't that courting death? Not to mention the laws of the Tang dynasty, even the scholars of the world wouldn't agree to it. At this moment, she finally understood what Zhao Yuer meant when she said she hoped that the people from the Gao clan wouldn't come. This way, they would definitely not be able to return. Moreover, when the great scholar came to visit Jiangnan, the Jiangnan officials, the scholars, and the provincial governor's office would definitely protect him like a treasure. Offending a Confucian was equivalent to offending the entire family. This was no joke. Moreover, the chancellor of the academy, especially the chancellor of White Deer College who was personally conferred the title by the emperor, was also a third-rank civil official. Zhao Ruer couldn't sit still when she heard this title. Did you already know? Zhao Yuer shook her head and said, no, it's all thanks to Yuqi Suqian. No. He's called you Suqian now. If it weren't for his arrival and Zhang Feng's attitude after knowing his identity, I wouldn't have thought so much. However, you have to know the relationship between Zhang Feng and the Yu clan. With that said, Zhao Ruer instantly understood. But this damned person, why didn't he reveal his identity? You said that we offended him, he probably wouldn't. That's right, didn't you want to take revenge on him? What should we do? Zhao Yuer rubbed her forehead and smiled bitterly. How would I know what to do? However, if this bastard wants to play dumb, we'll pretend that we don't know anything. Moreover, sister, you have to go back immediately and secretly tell father about this. Otherwise, I have a feeling that our clan will be exterminated. How could Zhao Ruer have any other ideas? Hearing this, her eyes flashed and she hurriedly stood up. Good sister, I'll go now, but you, Zhang Feng. Where is that Zhang brat? Tell him to come out. Zhang Feng. Get out here. Chapter 2130. The appearance of the newcomers was similar to Yu Suqian's previous appearance. However, these people were even more extreme. They held big sabers and daggers, and even had the word Gao written on their bodies, causing all the onlookers to retreat. There were even some people who didn't even want the paper and ran away in a hurry. Hao Chujun had never seen such a scene before. He was dumbfounded. Gao Qian and Jia Daoren stood at the entrance of the store on guard. At this moment, a young man in a fur coat slowly appeared in front of the two of them while picking his nose. Who else could it be but Gao Ming? However, his gaze directly bypassed Gao Qian and Jia Daoren. He looked up and down at Zhao Ru'er and Zhao Yuer with burning eyes. Seeing this, the two women's hearts skipped a beat. Gao Qian saw this and roared, blocking in front of Gao Ming. This made Gao Ming very unhappy. Blockhead, there are beautiful things here. If you don't want to die, get out of my way. I want to Before he could say a word, Gao Qian grabbed Gao Ming's hair and lifted him up. That kind of sour feeling. It was very exciting. Brat, presumptuous. Let go of the young master, or I will tear you into pieces. Bastard, do you know? Bastard. Gao Ming was trembling with pain, but because his body was suspended in the air, he didn't dare to move. He was afraid that if he moved, his hair might be pulled down. His mouth was like a bellows as he breathed in the cold air. Gao Qian looked around. Jia Daoren saw this and immediately stood in front of Gao Qian on guard. Brat, master doesn't want to kill you because master is benevolent. If you dare to be presumptuous again, do you believe that I will tear you alive now? Isn't this Yuer and Zhao Ru'er? A sharp voice rang out, causing everyone to tremble in shock. Zhao Yuer's face changed slightly. Looking at Gao Ming in the crowd, her eyes narrowed slightly. I was wondering who it was. It turned out to be the young master of the Gao family? Hee, I don't know what Yuer is doing here. And it seems like he was kicked out by that thief? Gao Ming glanced at the closed door indifferently, then looked at the two girls sitting at the door, and said with some jealousy, I don't think young Master Gao needs to be concerned about this. At this moment, Zhang Feng's voice slowly appeared at the entrance of the store. Then, Zhang Feng and Yu Suqian also slowly walked out of the store. However, when they saw Yu Suqian standing behind Zhang Feng, Gao Ming, Yuer and Ruer's eyes flashed with surprise. Previously, everyone had seen how arrogant this stubborn guy was. However, what happened in the room in just a short time? To think that, Zhao Yuer's eyes flashed with shock. Could it really be him? Although Zhang Feng's matter had spread like a legend in Jiangnan, it was only a few words. Someone with the same name, someone who could make the arrogant and stubborn young master of the Yu family bow his head. It seemed that other than that person, there was no one else, right? After all, he had the title of Duke of Yi and his family, who had nothing better to do and dared to provoke bad luck. He was the most famous ruffian in Yuezhou City. Who didn't know Yu Suqian's name? To make him lower his head, this made everyone feel inconceivable. However, this also seemed to arouse Gao Ming's vigilance. He looked at Yu Suqian and said, Brother Yu, why are you standing with such a person? Don't you know that today, between me and this kid, Yu Suqian smiled and interrupted Gao Ming. Brother Gao, Lao Tzu is willing. You can't control it. Hearing this, Gao Ming's face instantly turned red. You. Presumptuous. In ordinary times, among the children of Jiangnan's aristocratic families, Gao Ming was almost a leader. For so many years, he had become a tyrant in Jiangnan. Almost everyone would give him face. Especially the Yu family. The Yu family was very low-key. They were afraid of stirring up trouble and making it difficult for someone in the court. However, this bastard dared to talk to him like this? Gao Ming wasn't a fool. Naturally, he could feel the difference. Especially before coming here, he heard that Yu Suqian had brought people to make trouble for him. However, how long had it been? What was this situation? At this moment, not only Gao Ming, but even all the aristocratic families who were watching in the dark couldn't help but frown deeply. At this moment, the only ones who weren't worried were Zhao Yuer and Zhao Ru'er. However, the shock in their hearts had increased a lot, especially when they thought of Zhang Feng's brilliant achievements in Chang. And it was incredible. He dared to kill people in the street under the emperor's feet. Moreover, it was a massacre, He could even leave without a fart afterward. Such a person. Would he be afraid of a small Gao family? One must know that when they were in Chang'an, and Zhangfeng's massacre was a family like theirs. Moreover, it was a veteran force in Guangzhou. Brother Gao, let me give you a piece of advice. If you want to live, leave quickly. Otherwise, I will have to move my muscles today. Although Yu Suqian was standing behind Zhang Feng, he had just learned about some things. At this moment, it was better to suppress things as much as possible. After all, Gao Ming, this mad dog, wasn't someone else. If he went crazy here, it would really be difficult to explain. At that time, it wouldn't be good for the family. However, when Yu Suqian didn't say it, it instantly made Gao Ming furious. Yu Suqian, you son of a bitch. If I leave today, there will be no place for you in the aristocratic family's ranking. Gao Ming was angry. However, such a threat only made Yu Suqian stunned for a moment. This ranking, it wasn't up to standard. Now that there was a thigh here, how could he be interested in this thing? Yu Suqian smiled, picked his ear, and said lazily, Gao Ming, Lao Tzu will say it here today. You can play with this thing if you want. Lao Tzu really doesn't like it. You think that this thing you're talking about is awesome? But do you know that in the eyes of ordinary people and Confucian scholars, this thing isn't even considered trash? You still treat it as a treasure? Yu Suqian didn't lie about this matter. This title was just a bad name for them. How good could something made by a group of stubborn children be? All of them were a bunch of playboys fooling around in there. Anyone who was truly talented would crush them. It was nothing more than discussing where there were beauties in Jiangnan, which brothel girl was beautiful, which person found a concubine today. What was the use of such a team? Chapter 2131. On the other hand, who was Zhang Feng? He was the dean of White Deer College, the chancellor, and the youngest scholar of the Tang dynasty. He was the one who made Master Yushan vomit blood. Wasn't such a person good enough? Moreover, he was his brother-in-law. At this moment, Zhang Feng was interested and asked, Brother Yu, what are you talking about? Cough cough. Yu Suqian's face turned red and said, Brother Zhang, let's not talk about this. What's there to not talk about? It's just a group of playboys drinking all day long. Zhao Yuer covered her mouth and chuckled. This time, Yu Suqian's face turned red. He stared at her and said, Who said that? I have nothing to do with them now. How can I associate with such people? Really? Zhao Yuer asked. Gao Ming was instantly enraged by the way they were fooling around as if no one was around. Enough. Come on, burn this shop for Lao Tzu. As soon as the order was given, the thugs that Gao Ming brought with him immediately rushed forward while waving their sticks and howling. Zhang Feng had brought 1,000 guards with him. Originally, he wanted to follow them, but because of the beauty of the two women, he didn't want to cause unnecessary trouble. Besides, they had conflicts with the Gao clan, so he didn't know what these people would do. Therefore, Zhang Feng left more than 500 guards in the inn, and most of the rest were sent out by him to inquire about the news. This was also the reason why these people dared to make trouble here. But at this moment, when they really took action, more than 100 of Zhang Feng's guards rushed out from a corner not far from the shop. In an instant, on the whole street, everyone was shocked speechless. They saw more than 100 people, holding a uniform triangular iron stick with the thickness of a finger, stepped forward in a neat pace and slowly stepped forward. Even the sound of each of these people's footsteps was neat and uniform. Ta-ta-ta. Every time their footsteps fell, almost everyone looked sideways. This neat pace. Except for the well-trained soldiers in the barracks, almost no one could do it. Moreover, this was the kind of person who had experienced hundreds of battles. This was especially true for these guards. Many of them had cruel scars on their faces and arms, left behind by the war. At this moment, he saw the guards coming out. Jia Daren heaved a sigh of relief and shouted, Quickly protect the master. Whoever dares to come forward, beat them to death. Roar. More than 100 guards roared in unison and stood in front of Zhang Feng in a defensive posture. At this moment, everyone felt as if they were on a battlefield. In front of them were brave warriors who had experienced hundreds of battles. How could these stubborn young master's guards have ever seen such an existence? At this moment, the servants brought by Gao Ming were shivering all over. Even Gao Ming, who had been showing off earlier, was trembling at this moment. It looked at Zhang Feng with a pale face, and it couldn't utter a complete sentence for a long time. You. Who are you? These guards, where did they come from? No, are these people's official soldiers? Bold Zhang Feng, you actually dare to have a private army? It's over, you're finished. You don't know the law of escape. Come, quickly go and ask the county magistrate. Just say that someone privately recruited a private army. Enough. Gao Ming, don't you understand? For the sake of our past friendship, listen to my advice. The conflict between you and Brother Zhang is not irreconcilable. Let's end this matter here, okay? Yu Suqian saw that the situation had changed, and the person standing in front of him seemed to be the leader. At this moment, he actually made a killing gesture. What is this? This is a commonly used offensive gesture on the battlefield. After all, Yu Suqian was Yu Qigong's relative. He was very clear about these things, especially since there would be a large number of people joining the army every year. He was very familiar with these military matters. Especially, judging from the training quality of these people and the scars on their bodies, these people were definitely veterans who retired from the barracks. So many veterans. If they were to fight together, not to mention these people, even if there were 10 times more people, they definitely wouldn't be a match for them. Moreover, the thumb-sized object in their hands, no matter how he looked at it, made him panic. This thing was definitely good stuff. But he didn't know what it was exactly. He was afraid that with Zhang Feng's identity, it was definitely not an ordinary item. Moreover, who was Zhang Feng? He was a great scholar. He was also the chancellor and dean of White Deer College. He was also a viscount. Even if he didn't need guards, the laws of the Tang dynasty would arrange a group of guards for him. Therefore, it was normal for Zhang Feng to have these guards. Stop. Zhang Feng didn't want to make a fuss over a minor issue. He could also see that Jia Daren wanted to make a move. Zhang Feng couldn't stand this vexation, but there really weren't many people who could make a move if they wanted to. Especially now. He had just arrived in Jiangnan, and had many things to deal with. If he exposed too much at this moment, it really wouldn't be good for the future. Therefore, Zhang Feng really didn't want to use force as a last resort. Chapter 2132. In fact, Zhang Feng also knew that he didn't have any unsolvable conflict with this Gao Ming. And just like what Yu Suqian said, the people here definitely knew, or it was impossible for them not to guess something. However, the reason why these people were still like this was almost certain that they were probing, or they wanted to force him to make a move. Once he couldn't help but make a move at this time, on the one hand, he would expose his own trump card, and on the other hand, all the arrangements would be useless in an instant. And when he chose to make a move, the people of the 5 families and 7 great families would also use this as an excuse to make a move. If that was the case, then an all-out war with the 5 families and 7 great families and 7 great families would completely erupt. And this was definitely not what Zhang Feng wanted. At this time, when Gao Can saw that the battle was stopped, he also stood beside Zhang Feng for the first time to protect him, as if as long as someone dared to come up, he would absolutely dare to kill. Seeing this, Zhao Yuer felt relieved. She was worried that Zhang Feng couldn't help it, or this big fool couldn't help but make a move. Once they made a move, perhaps things would be completely out of control. This was also her thought after she confirmed that this Zhang Feng was that Zhang Feng. If it was before, she would have just fought. She also wanted to see what Zhang Feng was capable of, but now after seeing Zhang Feng's guards, she suddenly realized that this time Zhang Feng came here, there should be a big matter. Thinking of this, Zhao Yuer couldn't sit still. She must do something. Young Master Gao, today is the opening day of Prince Zhang's store. As guests, it's enough to be lively. Don't hurt the harmony. This little girl is not talented, but I want to be a peacemaker. I hope the 2 young masters won't hurt the harmony. How about it? Zhang Feng looked at Zhao Yuer with some surprise. Zhao Yuer's face was slightly red and she whispered, "What are you looking at?" Ahem. Well, today is the opening day of the store. Just now, there was a misunderstanding between young Master Gao and my subordinates. I hope young Master Gao doesn't take offense. Hearing Zhang Feng and Zhao Yuer's words, Gao Ming rolled his eyes and realized something. He took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. He cupped his fists and left with a cold snort. After all, he was in the hands of these guards. Even if he used his toes to think, he knew that if anything happened here today, he would have to go back lying down. In addition, the attitude of Yu Suqian and Zhao Yu today made Gao Ming think of something. He wasn't a boorish man. He just felt a little uncomfortable just now. However, this didn't mean that he couldn't tell the severity of the matter. On the contrary, children who grew up in large clans were very sensitive to danger. Seeing that he had left, only then did Zhang Feng look at Zhao Yuer strangely. To tell the truth, Zhao Yuer looked exactly the same as the young Guan Jilin of the later generations. He would be lying if he said that he wasn't moved. However, Zhang Feng also knew that the more beautiful a woman was, the more dangerous she was. From the moment he met her, Zhang Feng knew this. To be precise, when he met Yu Yuer. However, this was only a preliminary understanding. It was not until that moment that Zhang Feng started to seriously size up this woman. This woman was simply terrifying. Just now she should have guessed his identity. At this moment, Zhang Feng cupped his fists and said, "Miss Yuer, let's talk inside?" Okay. Zhao Yuer smiled slightly. Her small hand patted Zhao Ruer, who had been stunned for a long time. She let her recover her mind from Zhang Feng and reminded her to go home quickly. Then under Yu Suqian's attentive greeting, they walked into the store. The store was very simple. It could be seen that it was pieced together by spiritual ornaments. In other words, Zhang Feng didn't intend to stay here for a long time. This also confirmed Zhao Yuer's guess. Zhang Feng came to Jiangnan for a more important matter. So much so that he didn't put this kind of business in his eyes. After entering the store, Yu Suqian was like a little brother, eagerly pouring tea and water. After sitting down, Zhang Feng asked with a smile, "Miss Zhao, you should have seen something just now, right?" Zhao Yuer smiled and said, "The famous talent in Chang'an, and the poet god who wrote hundreds of poems when drunk. It's hard for me not to know you." She really recognized him. Zhang Feng could only smile in response. Zhao Yuer's character was extremely unruly and willful. But in the face of major issues, she was so calm, which was the most troublesome thing for Zhang Feng. He really didn't know whether this woman was pretending to be unruly or not. "Miss Yuer, please forgive me for what happened before. It was really a misunderstanding." No, we'll talk about it later." "What about my reputation in broad daylight?" "We'll talk about it later." So saying, Zhang Feng was a little speechless. Obviously, this woman was relying on him. After sighing, Zhang Feng deliberated and said, "I came to Jiangnan for. I know on the one hand it's because of you Yuer. Everyone in Jiangnan knows about this, so what else do you want to do? Is it this white paper business?" Zhang Feng nodded and didn't hide. "Yes, I want to develop business in Jiangnan, but as you can see, I'm not familiar with this place, and I lack some partners." Zhang Feng roughly explained his thoughts to him. In fact, on the one hand he wanted to test her, and on the other hand, he wanted to see what ability this Zhao Yuer had, and whether he could pull her to his boat. After that, Zhang Feng stared into Zhao Yuer's eyes and asked, "What do you think, Miss Zhao?" "The reason why I gave it to you is also for a purpose. I believe your family should be able to understand." Zhang Feng waved his hand and then looked at Zhao Yuer. "Of course, my industry is not only this. I also have the latest textile factory, steel factory, rubber factory, and yes, basketball production, food processing, and so on. This time, I came to Jiangnan to find some partners and then develop these things in Jiangnan." "Basketball is also made by you?" "Yes." "Then the braised meat, cigarettes, and the Chang'an hotel, white wine and beer are also made by you." Zhang Feng nodded and admitted it. However, Yu Suqian's and Zhao Yuer's eyes widened instead. There were some things that were very precious in Chang'an, and were very few in number. However, for people of their status, they would naturally use them and hear about them before. At that time, they were sighing with emotion. Just who was the one who had created such a magical thing? But his mother, this is made by this monster? The two stared at Zhang Feng's head. They really wanted to break it open and see what was hidden in this guy's head. Zhang Feng, is your head a human's head? What treasures do you have that you haven't taken out? Yu Suqian looked at Zhang Feng and asked in a trembling voice. He even had an impulse to touch it. Even Zhao Yuer looked at Zhang Feng with shining eyes. Zhang Feng was somewhat speechless as he looked at the two of them. Then he said, "You should be able to understand why I'm telling you all this. Alright, that's all for today. If Miss Yuer likes white paper, although there aren't many in the store, if you like it, you can take it yourself. I'll have someone send it back to your residence. This miss really likes something, are you willing to give it to me?" Zhao Yuer looked at Zhang Feng with shining eyes, which made Zhang Feng a little scared. However, Zhang Feng still subconsciously asked, "I don't know what Miss Zhao likes, as long as I can give it to you, I will give it to you. I like you, will you give it to me?" He also saw the ability of the guards outside. He almost couldn't help but ask Zhang Feng for a few, but when he thought that these people might be from the military, he finally held back. After the conversation, Yu Suqian left in a hurry. After he left, Hao Chujun walked into the shop with some worry and asked, "Teacher, such an important matter, what if Zhao Yu and Yu Suqian are here to inquire about the news? What should we do?" Zhang Feng smiled slightly and said, "So what? In fact, I really don't intend to hide this matter. I can't wait for them to leak the news." Hao Chujun was surprised and asked, "Why is that?" "Because in this way, we can determine whether these people are here to get to know us or have other purposes. This way, our next step will be easy." When Hao Chujun heard this, he couldn't help but understand. They came to Jiangnan in a crisis. First, there was the hostility of the old clans in Jiangnan, and then there was the trouble of the 5 families and 7 clans. Almost every step was full of danger. Moreover, Hao Chujun also knew what kind of impact the things in the hands of his teacher would bring to Jiangnan. It was almost certain that these clans in Jiangnan would be completely reshuffled because of his teacher. Now they didn't lack anything, what they lacked was allies. But now, as soon as they arrived in Jiangnan, they encountered people from the Gao family who came to find trouble. This wasn't a coincidence, but more like a test. Although the appearance of the guards today had temporarily resolved the crisis, they had also exposed some of their strength. Moreover, the reason why they were here today was because they had already guessed that these people from the clans would definitely come. They just didn't know if this warning would have a good effect. Zhang Feng didn't care. He had his own plan. Everything that happened today, only Yu Suqian was a bit unexpected. He thought of everything else. It was just that he didn't expect these guards. The initial plan was that these guards wouldn't appear unless it was a critical moment, but they still appeared a bit too early. In addition, Zhao Yu and Yu Suqian's intentional hints made a good show go down the drain. But it didn't matter. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng calmed down. Now the Wang family had come. Then the next step was to go to the Xie family to take a look. Previously, with Madame Xie's arrangements in advance, coupled with the reputation of the old scholar in White Deer College, naturally the Xie family's position in Jiangnan had also increased. At the very least, they wouldn't be looked down upon like before. And those aristocratic families more or less gave some face to the Xie family. After all, they were a great scholar and White Deer College's reputation was out there. No one dared to suppress the Xie family too much. Chapter 2135. At the same time, the Xie family. As the once most dazzling family, the Xie family at this moment looked incomparably miserable. The white marble archway that was once beyond everyone's reach was now in ruins, and had become a place for peddlers to tie their horses and mules. How miserable was this? At this moment, the Xie family only had one house left. Although this house was the last face of the Xie family, It was only a little bigger than the houses of other aristocratic families. As for the cracks that covered the walls due to disrepair, it showed the loneliness of this family. Once, from Chuzhou City to Jianzhou City, almost all of it was the sphere of influence of the Xie family. But with the passage of time, there was nothing left. This was really a case of things being the same, but people have changed. The Xie family in the south of Yuezhou City. The current head of the Xie family was always paying attention to the movements of Zhang Feng. From the time Madame Xie sent the news from Chang'an, and that Zhang Feng was coming to Jiangnan, they had been waiting and looking forward to it. But this guy's actions since he came to Jiangnan were very strange. This made all the people who were watching him a little confused. First, he had a conflict with the Gao family, and then he had an unclear relationship with the young lady of the Zhao family. Today, he dared to openly challenge everyone in Yuezhou City. The business of papermaking could be said to be related to everyone's lifeline. In addition to the control of the government, there were only these things in the hands of the major clans, and the interests of these things could be said to be violent. Especially the scholars of the Tang dynasty, half of them were in Jiangnan. And it was also because of the praise of the major clans that the price of rice paper was set at this price. Almost everyone's way of showing off was to talk about how many carts of books they had in their house. This was also the origin of the 5 cars of learning. But now, the head of the Xie family looked at the thin white paper in his hand, and couldn't help but fall into deep thought. At this time, a servant of the Xie family cautiously stepped forward and said, "Master, just now there was news from the market that Zhang Feng had distributed at least 200 caddies of white paper, and I also heard that he and the stubborn man of the Yu family entered the store and had a secret talk." Finally, the girl of the Zhao family also went in. The 3 of them talked for at least an hour. Hearing this, the Xie family head couldn't help but frown. What did they discuss? I'm not sure about that, but the people in Jiangnan aren't talking about that. Instead, they're talking about Zhang Feng's bodyguards and the weapons in their hands. The head of the Xie family looked at the paper in his hand and asked, "What's wrong with the guards? What are they holding?" It is said that these guards, from their movements, seem to be soldiers from the army. This is reasonable. After all, there are countless people who retire from the army every year. It is not surprising that these people find a place to live. However, these people are different. They seem to have undergone special training. Almost every step they take is in sync. Not only that, their auras and the weapons in their hands, I wonder what they are made of. It looks like iron, but it isn't iron. Furthermore, when it comes in contact with the body, it will emit a metallic sound. However, its exterior is pitch black. It looks like a poker. Furthermore, this thing is only as thick as a thumb. With Zhang Feng's status, he couldn't let his bodyguards hold a poker, could he? Most importantly, as a lord, the chancellor of the academy, and the contemporary great Confucian, he was allowed to have bodyguards in the imperial court. These guards, on the other hand, were allowed to use proper weapons. Was Zhang Feng short of money? No. According to the news from Chang'an, and Zhang Feng might not be as rich as a country, but at least he was much wealthier than the clans in Jiangnan. But why was he like this? Could it be that he had some ulterior motive? These were all mysteries. These mysteries troubled almost everyone who was watching Zhang Feng at this moment. It was impossible that Zhang Feng didn't know. What does he want to do? The head of the Xie family squinted and stared at the white paper on the table. He walked around the room with his hands behind his back. At this moment, the servant asked, "Master, the housekeeper has prepared the gifts. When are we going to visit Zhang Feng?" This question reminded the head of the Xie family, and he fell into deep thought. After a moment, he sighed and said, "No, how many people do you think this boy's actions today have angered? At this moment, if the Xie family has any contact with him, we are bound to become the target of public criticism. We have to wait and see." The head of the Xie family was right. After all, the Xie family could no longer afford to be tossed around. If this had happened 100 years ago, the Xie family would have dared to go. But now, the Xie family could only gasp for breath. What confidence did they have? The slightest disturbance might take the Xie family's life. He didn't dare to let the Xie family die here in his generation. After all, time waited for no one. There was nothing he could do about it. At the same time, in the residence of the Yu family branch in Yuezhou. In Yuezhou City, almost everyone with the surname Yu and other branches of the Yu family had gathered here. The head of the Yu family here was Yu Qihong's brother, Yu Qi Tuesday. Chapter 2136. In his early years, he had made some achievements in the army, and was hailed by the Yu Qi family as the second Yu Qigong. However, because of the situation in the imperial court and the change in the Xuanwu Gate, Yu Qi too had no choice but to protect himself and retire. Then he worked hard to build a business in Yuezhou. Although the Yuezhou Yu family wasn't a first-rate family in Yuezhou, it was still considered respectable outside. At this moment, 70 to 80 people of all ages were sitting in the Yu Qi family's living room. Everyone was reading the white paper that had appeared on the street. Some people were amazed, some shook their heads and sighed, and some had other thoughts. However, only Yu Qi too remained silent. From the beginning, he knew that Yu Suqian had gone to find Zhang Feng. To be precise, he had instructed him to do so. On one hand, he wanted to inquire whether this Zhang Feng was as magical as Yu Qigong said. On the other hand, he wanted to see if this person really had the guts. However, he was very satisfied with the results. This child was a man. Especially after learning about Zhang Feng's guards, Yu Qi too had a feeling that he couldn't understand his intentions. This kid could do so many things in Chang'an, and even make the emperor and others willing to hide their identities. Why did he choose to be so low-key when he came to Jiangnan? He could have used the most effective method to appear. Especially 1,000 guards. Others didn't know, but who was he? He used to be a commandant in the army. His sharp eyes couldn't be wrong about the origins of these people. Moreover, the fact that Yu Qigong and the emperor had allowed him to come alone showed that they had enough confidence in Zhang Feng. Judging from the soldiers and the weapons, as well as the fact that Chang'an was in urgent need of iron or some time ago, something major must have happened. At this moment, everyone was discussing the profits that the white paper business could bring. Some people were even preparing how to welcome Zhang Feng when he came. Everyone was so blinded by the benefits that they even forgot that Zhang Feng wasn't the Yu family's son-in-law at the moment. At this time, a dog-headed person poked his head out of the living room door, but how could he escape Yu Qi too's eyes? Yu Suqian, since you're back, tell me what you saw and heard today. Hearing this, the dozens of noisy people in the living room instantly looked at the door. Yu Suqian saw that he couldn't hide, so he braced himself and entered the living room. As soon as he entered, Yu Qi too, who was now Yu Tu, asked with his hands behind his back, "What did Zhang Feng say to you today?" No. He didn't say anything. When Yu Tu saw this, he could not help but frown slightly. Speak the truth. When Yu Suqian saw this, he couldn't help but shrink his neck. It seemed that the family knew everything. Chapter 2137. Yu Suqian finished the book and talked about what happened in Zhang Feng's shop today, especially emphasizing what Zhang Feng said to Zhao Yu. In this way, in an instant, all the Yu family members were boiling, especially when they heard Zhang Feng say that he was going to hand over the white paper business to them. They were even more excited than the new year. However, Yu Tu heard something different from the others. That was Zhang Feng's profoundness, as well as another layer of meaning. Zhang Feng wanted to let them choose their own side at this time. And the purpose of Zhang Feng coming to Jiangnan this time. It seemed that it was not as simple as avenging you, or in marrying you, or, perhaps, this was what Yu Qigong had repeatedly emphasized in his letters. Don't be an enemy of Zhang Feng. Don't be an enemy of Zhang Feng. A young man who could make the generation's god of war afraid of a tiger. What about it? He Yu Qi too could definitely think of it. And the most important thing was, at this moment, when Zhang Feng came to Jiangnan, he had already stood with the Yu family. Hearing the excited discussions of the crowd, as well as the excited faces, Yu Tu's heart was exceptionally heavy. After a while, everyone seemed to see the heavy expression on Yu Tu's face, and couldn't help but be silent. At this moment, Yu Tu said, "This matter is related to the life and death of my Yu family. For now, let Suqian handle this matter. Everything in the family will continue as usual. I have to go to Hangzhou Prefecture quickly. Before I come back, if Zhang Feng comes to visit you, Suqian, you will receive him with the highest etiquette, and you two looked around and said with a dignified expression, at this time, don't announce it to the public. Push everything to the main family. We are just a branch of the Yu family and have no right to do anything. And the matter of me going to Hangzhou, be sure to let everyone know. This, Yu Suqian was dumbfounded. Everyone was dumbfounded. An older person immediately said, Master, this matter is related to the future of our family. Why is the master so timid? Since it was given to us by that kid, why don't we accept it? Everyone seemed to have the same thought as they looked at you two anxiously. It was as if the moment he said something bad, he had the intention to change the patriarch. You two fell silent. He had the urge to beat these family members who only cared about benefits to death. If it were any other time, he would definitely pay a visit to Zhang Feng. However, the current situation was that Zhang Feng's motives were impure. Once they were infected, the Yu family would either live or die. These were the only two paths. Although he wasn't sure if this matter was instructed by someone in the imperial palace, Yu Qigong was being so cautious. But one had to know that this place was at least half a month away from the capital. Chapter 2138. Zhang Feng really wasn't worried about these things. What he was worried about was these officials. If under the influence of these things and they all banded together, it would be difficult to deal with them. At this moment, Hao Chujun hurried upstairs and reported in a low voice at the door. Teacher, I just received news that the Yuezhou government will be holding a poetry gathering tomorrow night at the Yuezhou restaurant. It seems to be related to teacher. They came so quickly. Just a moment ago, Zhang Feng was still wondering if these people would cause any trouble. Now, a poetry recital had appeared. As long as one wasn't an idiot, they would know that the person who set this up had an obvious motive. They wanted to lure him out. This person, Zhang Feng, wasn't afraid of the poetry gathering. He was worried that these people's motive wasn't just this. They wanted to confirm his identity. The reason why these people hadn't taken any action yet was because they hadn't confirmed whether Zhang Feng was that Zhang Feng. Once they confirmed his identity, it would be the time for a storm to come. I know. Spread the news that I will go to the poetry gathering tomorrow. Zhang Feng thought for a while and decided to go. After all, this matter couldn't be delayed any longer. Once it was delayed, these people would be instigated and do anything. For these hot-headed people, it was hard to say. Jingshu didn't expect him to agree. She hurriedly said, Young master, it's very obvious that this is a test. What if? Actually, for us this is also an opportunity. Zhang Feng interrupted Jingshu and said, They just haven't confirmed my identity for the time being. When I was in Jiangnan, everyone treated me as a merchant, and no one knew my true identity. That's why these people would do such a thing. Undoubtedly, they want to find out if I'm the Zhang Feng who founded the White Deer Institute. But once my identity is revealed, if we make use of what I did in Chang'an, and these officials and scholars will be a great help to me. So Prince Zhang wants to. Jingshu instantly understood what Zhang Feng meant. He wanted to take the opportunity to lay his cards on the table, and then use the opportunity to build momentum, and then rope in his own people. Jingshu was a smart woman. There were many things that didn't need to be said clearly. Therefore, Zhang Feng's approach at this moment was undoubtedly the best. Once he took the initiative to reveal his identity, he could instantly gather a large number of forces with his identity as a great scholar. Although these students had little influence on the merchants of Jiangnan, once they really formed a certain power, even the merchants would not dare to underestimate them. After all, the current emperor had issued an imperial edict. Moreover, there was a difference in status. These merchants would also restrain themselves. After instructing the servants to tidy up the living room, they went to the living room. As soon as he entered the living room, Zhang Feng saw a middle-aged man in his 50s with a slightly hunched back looking around the living room. Seeing Zhang Feng's arrival, the man hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "Prince Zhang, this humble one is Xie Ada of the Xie clan. I am the Xie clan's patriarch." "So it's Patriarch Xie. Please take a seat." Zhang Feng pretended to be surprised and hurriedly greeted. "I don't know what brought Patriarch Xie here. This is the residence that I just bought. As you can see, this place is being cleaned up. If there is anything that is lacking in hospitality, I hope Patriarch Xie can forgive me." It was fine if Zhang Feng didn't say anything. Now that he said that, Xie Ada felt that Zhang Feng was humiliating him. If he could get the provincial governor to accompany him here, it was impossible that Yin Che didn't tell him about the past. This place belonged to the Xie clan. But what did this brat mean by that? Xie Ada's eyes flashed, then he laughed and said, "Prince Zhang is too polite. I came here today for another matter. Today, I heard from my family that one of my juniors was insensible and was taught a lesson by Prince Zhang. Is this true?" So he was looking for trouble. Zhang Feng instantly understood. If he didn't mention this matter, Zhang Feng really wouldn't have remembered, and would even think highly of the Xie clan. But now, if it wasn't for the old scholar's face, he might have directly thrown him out. But he had to give the old scholar face. Zhang Feng saw this and nodded. "There is such a matter. But I think Patriarch Xie is also a reasonable person. I think Patriarch Xie should know the truth of this matter?" Xie Ada was stunned and asked, "Is there any other reason for this matter?" Zhang Feng didn't say anything. Instead, he smiled. "I've long wanted to visit the Xie clan. In Chang'an, Master Zihuai was like a teacher, a friend, and a relative to me. At first, I didn't know he was a member of the Xie clan. But now that I know and have come to Jiangnan, I should visit the Xie clan. But Patriarch Xie also saw it. Unfortunately, there are too many things to do. After I settle down, I'll just go to the residence for a chat." Hearing Zhang Feng say this, Xie Ada couldn't help but feel flustered. It was as if before he could throw a punch, he was pushed back into someone's arms. And he was the one who pushed it back. Then, the old man will wait at home for Prince Zhang's arrival. Xie Ada stood up, clasped his hands, and said goodbye. After Patriarch Xie left, Zhang Feng couldn't help but narrow his eyes. He finally understood why the Xie clan had declined. With such a decadent person who didn't want to make progress, who was always immersed in the glory of the past, what could he possibly achieve? This kind of person. But he really couldn't not give face to the old scholar. Chapter 2143. The scenery of the Yuezhou prefecture was extremely beautiful. There was no doubt about that. Otherwise, even if there were great writers and poets from various dynasties, it would be impossible for Jiangnan to be praised. That was simply an impossible existence. And most importantly, Jiangnan's water conservancy was extremely developed. Almost the entire Yuezhou prefecture could be explored by boat. 2 days. Zhang Feng brought his children and toured the entire Yuezhou prefecture. They even tasted the famous places and snacks of the Liang State prefecture in his memory. However, due to the conditions of this era, no matter how good the ingredients were, in their hands, it was just a big pot of stew. This also accelerated Zhang Feng's idea of opening an hotel in Jiangnan. Otherwise, if he wanted to go out, he would have to eat and drink by himself. It was really boring. And also today, on the busiest street of the Liang State prefecture, a restaurant called an hotel, opened for business. The ones in charge of the business were Hao Chujun and the others, as well as the 2 chefs Zhang Feng brought from home. In such a short time, Zhang Feng couldn't make the store luxurious. He just bought a restaurant that was in the process of being sold out, changed the furniture slightly, and opened for business. The reason why he was in such a hurry was because of tonight's poetry gathering. Once Zhang Feng stood out in the poetry gathering, the value of this hotel would instantly rise. The reason why Zhang Feng chose this place was because he wanted to buy the few stores next to it, and then start some other businesses, such as opening a bookstore or something. A one-stop service was more comfortable than anything else. Therefore, Zhang Feng had been planning from the beginning. Once he set his foot here, everything would quickly unfold in the future, especially the perfume he brought from Chang'an. Currently, he had been tinkering with it along the way, and after 2 days of purification, he finally succeeded in blending it. However, in this era, there was no suitable preservation bottle, so Zhang Feng didn't dare to be careless. Therefore, Zhang Feng had been having a headache over this problem. Today's trip, on one hand, Zhang Feng wanted to take the 2 girls out to relax, and on the other hand, he wanted to think of a way to solve the problem of the perfume storage. But after thinking for a long time, he still couldn't think of anything. After all, in the entire Tang dynasty, the only person who could do this was him, a transmigrator. As for what other people said, Zhang Feng really didn't know. Prince Zhang, it's almost time for the poetry recital. Shall we go now? At this moment, Jingshu looked at Zhang Feng and asked. When Zhang Feng heard this, he looked at the sky and nodded. He gritted his teeth and said, "Let's go home first. I'll get you some good stuff." As he spoke, Zhang Feng had the woodcutter turn the boat around and row in the direction of his home. 2 hours later, Zhang Feng wore an exquisite fur coat and appeared with the 2 women in a place that looked very luxurious, but also revealed a scholarly atmosphere. This place was called Shizhai, and Zhang Feng was soundproof. This name, that's great. It was very suitable for these people. But after Zhang Feng appeared, he instantly attracted everyone's attention. No one knew who Zhang Feng was. A doorman couldn't help but ask, "Young master, do you have an invitation?" Zhang Feng looked at Jingshu in confusion. Jingshu whispered in his ear, "This is the rule of every poetry recital. They are to prevent people from making trouble. And in every poetry recital, there will be high-ranking officials and noble ladies choosing husbands here. There are even some clans that will choose some outstanding juniors here to be their hangers-on." Zhang Feng suddenly understood. No wonder it was like this. Zhang Feng glanced behind the curtain and said with a faint smile, "I don't have an invitation, but I heard that any scholar can go in. Is that true?" The doorman was confused. After hemming and hawing for a long time, he finally invited a person who looked like a shopkeeper. The shopkeeper seemed to have good eyesight. After seeing Zhang Feng and the other 2, as well as Gao Qian and Jia Daren behind him, his eyes instantly changed. He hurriedly led them out respectfully. "So it's Prince Zhang who has come to visit. Sorry for not going out to meet you. Sorry for not going out to meet you." At this moment, the doorman couldn't help but be shocked. Prince Zhang? Could it be? At this moment, after looking carefully at Zhang Feng, his face turned pale in an instant. Wasn't this the master who distributed the white paper in Yu province? The shopkeeper led Zhang Feng into the Shizhai. What entered his eyes were the famous works of the great literary masters. Once he entered the door, the walls on both sides of the passage were full of words, with the names of the great literary masters. Zhang Feng even saw the name of Mr. Bosher among them. He couldn't help but have a new understanding of this poetry club. It turned out that Yu Shinan had also participated in this Shizhai. It was really strange. Once he entered the door, after passing through 2 doorways in an instant, a burst of noisy poetry recitation, as well as cheers, came to Zhang Feng's ears. Following that, there was a burst of music. At this moment, the shopkeeper smiled and said, "Prince Zhang, the one who is showing his poetry talent on the stage is Lu Jianqing, one of the top 10 most famous scholars in Yu province. This person could recite 100 family names at the age of 3, and was proficient in poems and songs at the age of 10. He even read Confucian scholar, and spring and autumn maturely." Chapter 2144. In the shopkeeper's endless introduction, Zhang Feng and the other 2 finally entered the hall. The so-called poetry house was actually located in a spacious courtyard. In the courtyard, all kinds of evergreen and flowering plants were planted, and then a circle of houses was built around it. The houses were from small to large, and finally at the top a dome was made, and some exquisite pictures were painted on the dome. With such a combination, Yanran became the existence of a paradise. After the three of them came in, the shopkeeper guided them to their seats, and then quietly withdrew. Then, a maid came forward to guide Jingshu and the other two to the area where the women were. But at this moment, the arrival of Zhang Feng and the other two could be said to have attracted everyone's attention. On the one hand, the mysterious fragrance of Zhang Feng and the other two, coupled with the beauty of Jingshu and Zhang Yuyao, made everyone look at Zhang Feng with hostility. Isn't this Prince Zhang? I thought Prince Zhang wouldn't come to this kind of fun gathering of the younger generation. At this time, a familiar voice appeared at the poetry gathering. Zhang Feng turned around and saw the two women of the Zhao family, and three women wearing the same face scarf leisurely came. Under Zhao Yuer's reminder, everyone roughly guessed Zhang Feng's identity, and the hostility in their eyes became complicated. Today, Zhao Yuer was wearing a pink gauze dress, paired with a white fur coat, which made her look hazy and uniquely beautiful. But this must be put aside her crafty and willful personality. This woman's fierce reputation in Jiangnan, especially in Yuezhou, was enough to shake the world. Once, a man's words were frivolous, this woman directly attacked, and almost destroyed that man's family jewels. Since then, the Zhao family's twin beauties became the real Zhao family's twin beauties. At this moment, Zhao Yuer and the others also saw Jingshu and the other two. Zhao Yuer narrowed her eyes and sized up Zhang Feng. Without waiting for him to speak, she snorted and greeted the two women. Zhao Ru'er hurriedly went forward and said, "Prince Zhang, I'm in a bad mood today. I hope Prince Zhang won't blame me. Let me introduce to Prince Zhang. This is the Wu family's young lady Wu Man Air. This is..." At this moment, suddenly someone at the door exclaimed, "Oh my god, Yu Yuer is here. Yu Yuer is here too." Instantly, Zhang Feng's heart skipped a beat. Jingshu and Zhang Yuyao couldn't help but look at the door. He saw, in a cold wind, Yu Yuer, who was dressed in a red robe, slowly walked into the poetry house. This made all the men go crazy. Originally, Zhao Yuer was already devastatingly beautiful. She had a natural charm, especially those eyes of hers. No matter who looked at them, they would be deeply enraptured. "You, it's Yuer. Miss Yuer, I'm Sun Yu from Yangzhou. May I have the honor of having a drink with you?" Chapter 2145. Everyone had heard that Yu Qiyu had lost her virginity after a trip to the capital. They also heard that she had an ambiguous relationship with Zhang Feng from White Deer College. In everyone's impression, someone who was qualified to become a great Confucian scholar and open an academy under the imperial edict must have learned a lot to be valued by the emperor. No matter what, this person had to be at least 30 years old. Moreover, he had been studying in his mother's womb to achieve such achievements. However, when Zhang Feng came to Jiangnan, it was not that no one doubted his identity, but they were all blinded by his age. Everyone unanimously felt that this Zhang Feng was not that Zhang Feng. However, this hug instantly made everyone understand. It turned out that this Zhang Feng was that Zhang Feng. Everyone was in an uproar. This was because the truth about Zhang Feng's identity was revealed in an instant. You're here." After the two hugged for a while, Jingshu's voice interrupted them. Yu Qiyu looked at the two women and blushed, which was rare. She pushed Zhang Feng away and ran away with the two women. Zhang Feng was stunned by the sight. However, he did not forget to secretly put a transparent glass word into her hand. Watching the three women whispering and walking to the second floor where the women were, Zhang Feng withdrew his thoughts and sat in his seat. It was not until then that Zhang Feng noticed that pairs of eyes that could cut him into pieces were staring at him. He did not know what they were thinking. However, Zhang Feng felt uncomfortable all over. He finally understood what the ancients meant when they said that there was a thorn in one's back. However, on second thought, those were Lao Tzu's women. What's wrong with Lao Tzu hugging them? What's wrong? With that thought, Zhang Feng calmly drank his wine and looked at the crowd. This caused everyone to be instantly enraged. "Prince Zhang, you're that Prince Zhang from the capital? I wonder if Prince Zhang knows someone with the same name as Prince Zhang. He's the dean of White Deer College." At this moment, The young man who recited the poem on the stage slowly sat opposite Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng glanced at that person and realized that there was a group of people staring at him from behind. Zhang Feng pondered for a moment and understood. This person had obviously found a master, which meant that he had become a follower of a great clan. He wanted to test the waters for his master. Zhang Feng calmly cupped his fists and said, "May I ask, which clan's young master?" This question instantly made that person's face turn red. However, that person seemed to be asked this question often. He coughed and said, "This humble one's surname is Liu, and his courtesy name is Shuheng." Zhang Feng pretended to be surprised and said, "So it's Brother Liu. May I know why Brother Liu is looking for me?" "It's nothing." Chapter 2146. However, for the entire poetry house, this was simply an unimaginable existence. Everyone looked at the two people who were hugging each other in broad daylight in disbelief. What kind of scandal was this? In an instant, those who had long coveted Wuxia were furious. What kind of scandal is this? What kind of scandal is this? This is the study room. This is a dignified place for reading poems and essays. How can it tolerate such an act that stains the eyes and insults the saints? Yes, this kind of thing shouldn't happen here. Men, chase him out for me. He's a disgrace to the refined, an insult to the immortals. Jealous voices sounded in every corner of the study room. But if one listened carefully, one wouldn't know who was scolding him. But it didn't matter to Zhang Feng. In the future, such things were common. It was simply too normal to be jealous of a public display of affection. But for Yu, after waking up at this moment, she instantly felt her cheeks blushing. She had thought about this kind of thing a lot, but when she woke up at this moment, she was instantly at a loss like a frightened rabbit. Seeing this, Zhang Feng couldn't help stroking Yu's cheek and said with a smile, "Don't be afraid." "I'm not afraid, but it's too embarrassing. I'm going to find Sister Jingshu first." She ran away as soon as she saw Wuxia. At this moment, Zhang Feng's face was a little flushed. Listening to the discussions and the exclamations of admiration from the women, Zhang Feng coughed and continued to drink tea with his hands behind his back as if nothing had happened. But this infuriated the person who had just spoken. At this moment, a young master came forward and sat next to him, scolding angrily. "Zhang Feng, you still have the nerve to sit here? Don't you think it's inappropriate?" Zhang Feng glanced at the man in confusion and asked, "I'm reuniting with my wife after a long separation. Did I disturb you?" That person's face turned green as if he had eaten a green fly. He chuckled for a long time before he said, You're really shameless. This is a place for scholars. Moreover, you're not engaged. You're shameless." Just as that person was about to give up, another young man wearing a black robe slowly stepped forward. He looked at Zhang Feng and said, "Prince Zhang, this one has 3 questions. I wonder if Prince Zhang can resolve them for me?" Zhang Feng squinted his eyes slightly. This person did have some background. He should be from the Wu family. Zhang Feng cupped his fists in response. When that person saw this, he said bluntly, "Prince Zhang, we heard that when Prince Zhang was in the capital, he was drunk on Shao Mountain one night and wrote 100 poems. However, there is one poem that puzzles us the most. We hope that Prince Zhang can explain it to us."